Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Broccoli Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What if Deku possessed Naught Quirk? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. 01. He was cursed. Everyone had said so, ingrained it in everything that he did and in every breath he breathed. Izuku is quirkless and cursed. Mutations muted at a touch, explosions in his face leave him unblemished where not even soot clings to his skin. He has no quirk and no quirk in existence wanted to be near him. This was a truth he'd been told for years. By the time they were in their last year of middle school, the boy suddenly vanished. Transferred, the school stated. Missing, his classmates whispered. Dead, some of the teachers offhandedly suggested without any care. Bakugo Katsuki knew them all to be false. His only evidence, Midoriya Inko, was the same as ever. In the underground of society, therein lies a system of rules that follows no formal declaration or written form. Everything you can know about something or someone all comes from word of mouth. The world when the lights go out is a macabre shadow of the daylight. You never know who you run into, who you might want to avoid, who claims which street or area as a whole. It's why information brokers are in demand. Resources that you need to survive this deep in the dark all depend on information and pure luck. If you have the wrong info then, you'll have to pray luck gets you out alive at the very least. Among the most valuable resources in the underground is medical service. The cheap ones are shady and most likely to get you down a kidney. The high-grade ones are in deeper pockets and far more likely to get you killed at best. Alright, your injuries are rather minor but I wouldn't recommend aggravating it. He inspected the handiwork of neat bandages that ran along his arm. Please try not to get it dirty before you see your doctor tomorrow. He sits up straighter, a little lightheaded from the concussion he suffered while restraining the villain currently hanging underneath a light pole. He looks back at the kid, dressed up in a silver tracksuit with a green oversized jacket that puffed up with the number of medical supplies hidden underneath it. The kid smiled at him, wearing fully shielded sunglasses that hid his eyes relatively well. You do this often, kid? Patch up strangers in the middle of the night? Eraserhead asked sarcastically. Yes. The kid leaves before the cops arrive, disappearing into the shadows without a sound. 1 year before the Iida entrance exams, a ghost had appeared in Musutafu. 03. Word was getting around of some kind of medical vigilante, one with a big magical hoodie with all the cures to your ailments. The underground named him Jin, or Gintonic, because he apparently carries the stuff around inside his giant hoodie alongside a dozen other items of questionable origin. He's hard to spot on your own and only makes himself known at the chance of a villain attack or someone is in need of medical attention. He's fast, careful and only steps in on villain attacks when absolutely necessary. Otherwise, he would have gotten a hero in the area on the scene. It's the kind of scene Mirko walks into, following her senses to reach the distressing civilians and turn the corner. Just in time to see this kid, in this oversized jacket and bright red shoes, stand right in front of some blast from the villain's quirk to protect the civilian behind him. The beam hits the kid square in the chest and nothing. It didn't tear a hole through his guts or cause any outward changes she could see. It didn't look like it was blocked or deflected. An emission type, yellowish light indicating a level of heat. Some kind of heat ray? The direction is clear and didn't disperse, so a laser. The kid muttered, "Oh, sorry ma'am." He turns around to the civilian. "Are you all right?" "What the F dash?" The villain says exactly what they're all thinking and readies another blast. She doesn't waste another second diving into action, immediately apprehending the villain and restraining him quickly with the cuffs she had on her person. "That was some real brave bullshit you pulled, kid," she says as she turns back to them, but the kid is gone. "Where did he?" The figure over the fence flinched, nearly losing his footing. He looks back for half a second and jumps over the chain-link fence. "Get back here." 04. She doesn't catch the crazy little sheet, somehow the kid was fast enough to outrun her. Her mind goes over what she saw. How the kid moved in front of danger without hesitation. It was a reckless move even if he did walk out of it seemingly unscathed. He had no fear in his gait, he knew what was happening and took it on headfirst. On top of that is his brief analysis of the villain. He was right about the guy having an emission-type quirk. He's able to make lasers blast out of his palms. Looking up Vigilante forums gave her the name to this son of a gun. The benevolent ghost of Musutafu, Gintonic. Weird name but an apparently good source of medical service if you're in a pinch on the streets. He's described as small, silent, and completely invulnerable. Not in the way one would clench their fist and keep standing after an attack unscathed, but in the way one would throw a paper airplane into a space with no wind or throw a stone into an endless well to see how deep it is. Useless. She'd ask around for any information, but like most investigations regarding the Vigilante since the past year, she found nothing other than what was already known. The hero heading the investigation of said Vigilante at large is Eraserhead. Interestingly, Mirko looked up the official contacts for the man, only to be redirected to UA to speak to their principal, which is somewhat irksome. She just wanted to learn a bit about the kid, not get offered a teaching program. 05. On top of first aid, the kid's got an eye for detail. Some people tend to panic, and to keep people calm, medics would talk to patients. Gintonic loved talking about quirks. He'd ask his patients all sorts of questions most wouldn't consider and even give them advice. For heroes, he's given pretty solid pointers on improving their skills and tactics. Most of the underground seem to have taken a liking to him. Still, he was extremely elusive and outright impossible to catch. On the off chance they were able to bait him out with an injury, he managed to slip past all their cameras and sensors without a sound once he was done with treatment. What really surprised them is the day he rescued Eraserhead from an abduction by a Yakuza clan. The kid came out of nowhere, tackling one of the assailants that got on Eraserhead's blind side. The kid's fast, dodging hits and seamlessly adjusting his movements to coordinate around erasers. However, he's a little lacking. No proper form, and some of his moves don't seem to fit him very well, like he's mimicking someone else. Someone who is much taller and moves far faster. Suddenly, the kid diverts his course, grabbing hold of the capture weapon and pulling Eraser down. Just in time to see a wall of blue flames charge towards them. It's too bright for Eraser to use his quirk against a holder he can't see. A shadow steps over his form and the flames go over him as the kid shields him with his whole body. DMN. You're a real FANG ghost, huh? The villains step back as Eraser gets back up, hair raised up and eyes glaring at them. He spies the kid's shades on the ground, half melted beyond saving. A fire quirk. The power itself is pretty destructive, but it looks like you can't handle it either. The kid walks towards the Fee's user. Tissue scaring and skin grafting, staples. Points of emission. Blue fire lit up the area, but the kid continued walking through, muttering under his breath until he was only a step away. The clothes he wore are barely singed, his hair has a sickly grayish tint to the green pigment, and his eyes, big as they were, are absolutely blank. Like someone forgot to add the coloring he required to shape the pupils and irises. The villain throws a punch, but the kid catches his hand with a surprising amount of strength. He hummed, blank eyes staring at the scars as fingers wrapped around the man's wrist. I would recommend trying this cooling if it wasn't still in the experimental phase. A tube of some sort of paste is shoved into the villain's hand. Your body is more adapted to cold temperatures, so the drawback from your quirk is extremely severe. I've yet to develop the foaming agent to go with it, but we'll get there eventually. The villain blinks out of his stupor, prying his hands out of his grip and stepping back with a wary look. What the hell are you? The kid only smiled. I'm nothing. 06. The fire villain got away, but the rest were soundly captured. The kid didn't leave immediately. He dug into his pockets and got ahead in applying first aid for both Eraserhead and his captives. You okay? He had to ask. Regardless how invulnerable his quirk might appear, no one is that invincible. Not a scratch. Haven't you heard, Eraserhead? I'm a ghost. It doesn't work on me. He says as he finishes applying the burn creams he insists Eraserhead needed. Who taught you how to fight? Oh, I didn't actually train with anyone. The kid says sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. I just happened to meet this user. She's extremely strong and I tried to copy her moves. Though, I suppose some of her techniques aren't quite built for my physique. I saw a mix of styles earlier. He pointed out. Oh, that, she wasn't the only one I tried to copy. I have no original moves. He chuckled under his breath, keeping his head down. Erasure tilts his head, trying to keep the kid's gaze, but he refuses to meet his eyes. Sorry, I have to go now. It's sloppy, the hero says, finally looking elsewhere. But with a bit of training we could refine it. If you want to, I could. He trails off, looking back at where the kid was only to find himself talking to air. He glances upwards, just in time to see a shadow retreat into the dark. He wished half the kids he's had in his classes could be as stealthy. 07. Katsuki didn't often follow his mother on the weekly visits to the Midoriya household. The door of the apartment is quiet, still warm and homely, but in the way you looked at an old photo. Deku's shoes are still missing. Before they could knock, they hear a very rare sound they haven't heard in almost a year. Inko's laugh. His hearing is a little shot because of how much he's used his quirk, but he could make out the other voice on the other side. The other voice is masculine and clearly aged. Progress is phenomenal. I would have taken him in for longer if the others hadn't pestered me for a turn. His mother knocks on the door. There's a shuffling sound and a little exchange before the door clicks, swinging wide open. The old man was a stout fellow. A can in hand and wrinkled eyes looked at them carefully. Ah, Miss Midoriya's other guests. He says, deep brown eyes gazing at them impassively. You'll have to wait. The door shuts at their face. The language. Mitsuki cuffs him over the head. The door opens again to a frantic Midoriya Inko. I am so sorry. Mr. Torino is a bit forward. Please, come inside. With a glare from his mother, he decides not to make a fuss of it and quietly enters the apartment after taking off his shoes. They pass by Izuku's room. The All Might nameplate is turned around, giving only the blank side in view. Inko invites them to the living room where the old man from before sits over the dining chair with a cup of tea in hand. Old beat-up jeans and a plain button shirt. Mitsuki, Katsuki, this is Mr. Sorahiko Torino. Grand Torino. The old man corrects her, sharp but not unkind. Since you're receiving more guests, I'll come by another time to fill you in on that intern's work. He places her teacup down and takes his cane. Bye-bye. She left without another word, as suddenly as she appeared. Inko would explain shortly after who Grand Torino was and the reason for her visit. The retired hero and many others had taken Izuku as an exclusive intern for their respective works and research. It's where he's been for the past year, why he's never home anymore. But Katsuki could tell there was something else Auntie Inko wasn't telling them. After all, he's never heard of the oldie before and couldn't possibly fathom the sheer honor of him appearing in person at the apartment. 08. Aizawa and Detective Tsukachi looked at the board, their current investigation plastered over the wall in glorified paper scraps and red string. This kid has been all over the place, helping civilians and even offering medical aid. His fighting style has some improvement, but without any refinement, he was going to make a blunder, and regardless how good his quirk is, there's no telling its drawbacks or how long he could hold it up for. There hasn't been any matches aside from this quirkless kid that's dropped out of middle school. Even then, the eyes aren't a match. Tsukachi handed him the file. There are multiple counts of disciplinary action throughout his schooling. Disruption of classroom, harassing students, instigating fights, and even credited assault. The entirety of the reports don't even take any accounts from the student's perspective. The stark difference in behavior from the kid who fights as a last resort suggested discrimination. He'll take a closer look for another time. More importantly is the profile image. It's him. You're sure? The detective asked. Confident. He confirmed. Aside from the eyes, everything else matches perfectly. This is Gintonic. 09. Initially he had assumed the kid was some kinda late bloomer. With how his white eyes only appeared later, but there was something else to the theory. Verbal statements they've taken described him as cursed rather than weak. So much so that no quirk wanted to be near him, no quirk could affect him. Medical records still present the extra toe joint, but the fact that his invulnerability appeared from youth showed that it wasn't something newly developed. He set up a personal meeting with the boy's mother, Midoriya Inko. "My son is fine." For such a small woman, the steel in her eyes was a fierce look. "Ma'am, I assure you that he isn't in any trouble." Aizawa dug up everything he knew from his years doing parent-teacher conferences. "We aren't trying to prosecute him in any way. That kid helped me and I just want to return the favor, to help him." "They called him cursed, didn't they?" Inko looks down, tears prickling her eyes. The detective next to him sits silently. "I know he's been through a lot and I promise you all I want is what's best for him. Right now as he is, it's dangerous. He needs training at the very least and I'm willing to get him recommended into UA." Inko looked up, even the detective seemed surprised. "I thought the staff couldn't recommend students." The detective said, "Let's just say I'm not the only underground hero who owes him a little." He could make a whole list with Mirko on top as the main sponsor. Inko sighed, looking down. "If you had asked a few months ago, that may have been more possible." She says, "Last year, Izuku was approached by some researchers from Island to research on quirks. He submitted an analysis in their forums that soundly impressed them and he was invited as an intern." There's a soft smile on her face, a touch of pride painting her features before her expression dimmed, and she stands up. "But when he volunteered for a test there, they found something else that challenged so many things they knew about quirks." She led them to Izuku's room. All sorts of hero merchandise from figurines to posters lined the walls and nearly every shelf. Various books crammed the bookshelf next to the desk and bed, a majority being notebooks. She takes a thin file from the drawer underneath and hands it over for them to see. "I expect you to keep your word when you see this. Give my son his dream back," she says sternly. "I promise you." Aizawa nods, taking the file carefully. He opens the file, the detective standing next to him already swearing secrecy. His quirk is called Dash. Naught. He walks with her hand in hand, his shielded glasses perched over his head as he applied his contact lenses with the free hand. His jacket completely engulfed the little girl he's walking with, all the supplies already transferred to a duffel bag slung across his shoulder. "Naught, Mu?" The girl tilts her head curiously, red eyes wide with wonder instead of fear like before. "Like Deku. Dikairu?" He smiles at her bit of confusion, shaking his head. "Zero. Nanamonai." He reiterated for her understanding. "Nothing." She pondered to herself. They arrived at the apartment by sundown. He went over his mental plan. When he had gone out in the early morning, he wasn't expecting to run into such a small girl running away from home. They spent the entire day going through forests and hidden paths in different loops to keep any pursuers off their backs. Throughout their journey, she had been checking her little horn periodically, like it would grow out exponentially. He showed no hesitancy or fear, the sparks of energy going past him harmlessly as they held hands and talked. "Eri, I'm going to find a safe place for you. Okay?" He promised her as he reached the front door of the apartment. "What about you?" she asked. "If they find out about you too." "Don't worry, Eri," he assured her. "Let's just look forward." He reaches for the door but the handle twists before he even touches it and it swings open. Aizawa froze at the entrance, the file under one arm as the detective in a similar fashion stopped putting his shoe on. "Izuku!" His mother gasped. The boy smiled warmly at them. "Great timing. We need help." 11. Every hospital has always felt the same for Izuku since he was young. The smell of sterilization and hints of chlorine for the cheaper places. He's holding Eri's hand as they give her a checkup. In his mind noting every bruise and scar that were hidden beneath the bandages that wrapped her arms. Within the room was Eraserhead, who introduced himself as Aizawa to the two children as he and the detective managed to convince them to go through a discreet hospital for examination. "I can't be a hero, Mr. Aizawa," he says when the offer is put out. "Mind I ask?" "I'm not meant to," he says simply. "I'm nothing. Look at whose hand you're holding." He looks down, Eri notices the slight shift and glances up at him innocently before smiling softly. He smiles back, handing her another sweet as the doctors finish wrapping up her wounds. They have to be separated momentarily for a scan, and Aizawa takes this chance to stand closer. I just ran into her. He muttered softly, removing his gloves before taking off the contact lenses. I'm nothing, but I couldn't leave her on her own like that. There wasn't much else I could do. You could have left her. No. Izuku snapped up with the most emotion he's shown since they met him. I'd never. That's what makes you a hero. Aizawa says. At least, that's what you are to her. He sees something change in those empty eyes, the subtle way it widened, the brief flinch. It's a spark. A start. Izumu. Eri ran back to him once they were done. Are we sleeping over at the hospital tonight? Just for tonight. He looks between her and Aizawa, sighing under his breath. We have to talk to a very important person about getting a new house. Quote, the plan for dorm buildings for students has long rested in the back of Nedza's mind for ages. Though, he's never quite had much of a reason to push for the project until Aizawa approached him for a very special situation. By that morning, the underground had issued a bounty for the girl alone. To be found alive only and completely unharmed. The pay is hefty and reasonable enough to place her under UA's protective custody for the unforeseen future. The boy has been a subject of interest since he started showing up around Musutafu, helping anyone he came across. Meeting Gintonic outside of the usual vigilante work was a sobering experience. In the daylight, he's a rather timid kid, very polite and smiles a lot, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Blank as they were, it's difficult to gauge what he's actually feeling despite how expressive he can be with minimal facial movements. It was like watching a puppy leased and muzzled but still trying to be cheerful. It's especially apparent around Eri, who looks for his company most since he rescued her, and the fact that her quirk can't affect him in any way. Ms. Midoriya had agreed to let Izuku stay at UA for the time being and for the duration of his studies. Yes, they're letting him take the entrance exam for the hero course. He had finished his middle school studies online while interning on Island, where they discovered his very unique constitution. Late bloomers are rare, but one so uniquely hidden is certainly unprecedented until now. How are we sure that we can trust him to be telling the truth? Even if it is, how do we know the truth he believes isn't skewed? Sir Nighteye says that the collected persons involved in this issue. As it were, Eri is connected to a case he had been investigating for a while now, and they had yet to get any clues on it. I can vouch for it. David Shield, owner and head researcher of Island, presents the slides of the research his daughter was doing. Naught, as he named it himself, is a quirk that functions passively to neutralize any and all manners of foreign quirks, as well as things that pertain to quirks in general. He still has the extra toe joint, so it still shows up in the scans, and all known personnel would immediately mark him as quirkless. As we can see from the clips here, quirks like this blast emission are completely useless against him. I see why he named it Naught. Mirko grinned. How'd this kid fly under the radar with a quirk like that? It has a very specific activation requirement. David Shield continued. The user. They watched as his eyes went over the lines repeatedly and put the paper aside. The user must reach a certain level of despondency, to the point where he becomes nihilistic in just about everything. So, this kid had to be depressed for this quirk to manifest? Present Mike asked incredulously. That's a shitty way to go about it. Is he okay? He isn't suicidal, at least. The scientist says, a touch hopeful. But, like all quirks, there are drawbacks. Not while passive, is also an actively functioning ability, and the continuous use is detrimental. He clicked the next slide, showing 2 profile images. At the start of his internship here, Midoriya's eyes were still visible. The colors of his big doe eyes are a soft light green. He looks so awkward and shy at having his photo taken, most likely from the orientation day. The lanyard around his neck displays the intern card with the very same shy smile. The other image showed a small boy with curly hair, a wide cheerful smile, and deep green eyes just like his mother. The quirk has been progressing slowly over the years, making his eyes a shade lighter with time. Since the research began, I don't know if it's something I did or what I said or if something happened, but one morning I saw him and his eyes were just blanks. Gone. The man recalled sadly. And it's getting worse. He's lost sense of his pain receptors and he can't even raise his voice anymore. Eraserhead, who's been silent the whole time, posed a question. How long does he have? 14. Izuku looked over the pre-test regiment Mr. Aizawa had made for him. While his internship and training with Gran Torino and his contacts have been a load of help, he had yet to define a proper style to his combat. It seems they've arranged for him to directly take after Aizawa as his new mentor, probably since they have similar quirks and both live in UA. They would essentially be fighting Quirkless. Izuku seemed to favor the use of his legs more than his arms, having picked up some basic capoeira as Gran Torino wanted to use his bare interest into something a little more detailed and dedicated to keep his attention. Honing it was another thing. The kid was a natural, but he only sees any progress he's made to be nothing noteworthy, simply something to cross off a list like a routine. He wasn't even interested in an official costume until Eri overheard and asked him questions all about the design and color. Eventually they managed to agree to a design that Eri liked, but Izuku didn't really have his heart in it. He gave a list of requirements and let the support team do as they pleased. Aizawa is trying for the better word. He doesn't know if it's enough, he can only hope for the best. During this PRD, Izuku loses the ability to taste. 15. On the day of the entrance exams, a miraculous thing had occurred that every UA had long hoped for. Izuku made a friend. She was another candidate sitting for the exam and they seemed to hit it off pretty well. Especially since Izuku came to her rescue and offered to stay by her side even after he treated her ankle. As the unofficial child of UA, he had endeared himself to the staff with not only his skills and intellect but his rather kind personality that always shines through the nihilistic air. The kid was strong in his own way, using a spear they had approved for the test in order to take down as many bots as he could. He's extremely acrobatic and agile. A mix of different martial arts that require a mastery of speed and flexibility has him barely dodging the projectiles with minimum effort, just to avoid getting injuries as Eri asked. Above all else, he would never make Eri sad. Seeing him rescue and treat the same girl he befriended brought a smile to their faces and marks were given accordingly. It's no surprise he made it into the hero course and it eases them to see him smile more genuinely after the rescue. 16. The blonde freezes at the door, his red eyes zeroes in on a familiar figure with fluffy green hair getting his tie fixed up by a fussy guy with robotic movements. What the hell are you doing here, Deku? He spat the words with a familiar venom, but it lacked the heat it usually carried. Deku turns around to see him, blank eyes, solid white and smooth as glass, stares at him impassively. The F is up with your eyes? He stomped forward until he was face to face with the other boy. It's a condition, he replied. His voice is soft but it doesn't tremble or stutter. I can still see, but other than the scara, the rest of my eyes turned completely white. They've confirmed my iris and pupils are still there at least, but they can't be seen with the naked eye anymore. He scoffed. Of course your FNG curse just got creepier. Hey! A round-faced girl steps up to them. Izuku's quirk isn't a curse. You got something to say, round face? He loomed over her threateningly, sparking up his hands with an explosive pop. Excuse me. Glasses spoke up. The use of quirks threateningly against other students is a violation of UA regulations. Please correct your behavior. It's fine, both of you. There's nothing he can do to hurt me. Izuku draws her back, now angling his body between her and Katsuki. Sorry, I forgot your name again. Uraraka. It's okay, I'll just keep reminding you until it sticks. Iida Tenya. But if it helps, perhaps you could call me Ten for short. Glasses suggested. 10. Deku muttered. I think I can remember that. Oh, then I can be Raka. Round face piped up, excited for some reason. Try it. Raka. He repeated, head tilted slightly. Again. Raka. He nods at her then to Glasses. 10. Yes. The two dorks cheered. So we gotta shorten our names for him to remember? Some yellow dude walked up to them. Yo, Midoriya. Try calling Ki. Short for Denki. Ki. Izuku repeated with a nod. Raka. Ki. He repeats it like a mantra, trying to remember. He paused briefly through his mutterings and stared at the door. Aizawa-sensei. If you're here to have fun, then you're better off dropping out, problem child. The hobo man said, stepping out of his yellow cocoon. He introduced himself as the homeroom teacher and pulled out sports uniforms from the sleeping bag. Everyone put these on and meet me at the field. 17. In the Quirk apprehension test, Izuku had placed at 3rd in the class overall. Despite his quirk not giving him any enhancements, he's actually quite well built. Aizawa hides the smile behind his capture scarf as Izuku finishes 1st in the short distance sprint. He was already being trained by former pros when he met him. Aizawa only refined a style he could work with. He had to expel one student for SXL harassment when his problem child reported the creep trying to peek on the girls changing. Though, he does take note of the excessively violent behavior Bakugo displays. He'll probably have to get a word in with Hound Dog about it. When All Might appeared to take over heroics, Aizawa decided to help monitor the class just in case. All the kids were now dressed and checking out their official hero costumes with varying degrees of excitement. Izuku's new outfit consists of a silver bodysuit with dark green pattern lines, one going across his heart resembling a heart monitor, and a silver-gray hood over his head with stitch lines resembling bird feathers. Over the suit is a buttoned rust green coat with a utility belt and small emergency aid kit on the back of his waist. The kid looks like a field medic on a battlefield. The reinforced boots are something Aizawa had recommended to enhance his abilities on the field. If it matched his own pair of combat boots, well, no one can really say. Young Bakugo, stop. That will kill him. All Might yelled over the speakers. He'll be fine as long as he dodges. The manic kid grinned wide as he pulled the pin. Explosions rang out through the whole building, smoke wafting through the air and reaching to the skies. A hand in silver-gray gloves reaches through the smoke, blank eyes gazed at him through the ashes. The steel coating boot lands right over his head, knocking him out. Midoriya, Gintonic, Izuku stands over Bakugo's unconscious form completely unharmed and pulls out the capture tape. Aizawa and All Might sag with relief as the former Vigilante ties up his opponent. Villain captured. How are you doing? He asked into his communicator. Raka. Iida keeps moving around, but I think I can catch him. She reported. I'll take the villain out of battle range. He says, pausing before adding. Do your best. Izuku hefts Bakugo into a firefighter carry over his shoulders and makes his way out of the building. Halfway out the door, he hears a groan and the restrained villain over his shoulders starts to stir. The F dash dot? Gave me a concussion, you a-hole. It's minor. Izuku says, continuing on his way. That you've been holding out on me, huh? Da think I'm not good enough to even fight back then? His words slurred, eyes blinking hard as he tried to gather his bearings over the headache. He tries to use his quirk, but nothing happened. Just like when Aizawa-sensei erased it. Say something, damn it. What do you want me to say? If you could have done this before, then why didn't you? Why didn't you fight back? Izuku placed him on the ground. His hands were still bound. I should thank you, I think. In the background of their communicators, All Might announced that the hero team wins. Without you, the way you are, I probably wouldn't reach this point. I used to think it was fine as long as I could see you stand and shine. That was enough for me. I only realized last year that it wouldn't be enough for you. I don't think anything is enough for you. 19. Vultures were at the entrance. Izuku observed them silently from the classroom window. Aizawa-sensei was out there, trying to get the media to back off. Whoa, you're first again, Midoriya? Siro asked. He figured his name was short enough to try to remember himself. You live close by or something? I live on campus. Those new dorm buildings. Seriously? That's awesome. I heard every class gets a building. Not a lot of people seem to sign up though. He chuckled as he took his seat. Oh, you remember me? Dude. Raka. Momo dash. It's Siro. Siro. Izuku sighed silently. Sorry. It's cool, man. Siro assured him. How are you today? Same as yesterday. He shrugged. I am a little sad I think since lunch yesterday. We made it. Uraraka and a few other classmates sighed in relief as they piled into the classroom. All those reporters blocking the door, I could barely breathe. Should have just blown them up. Bakugo muttered as he got to his seat. He glances at Izuku but doesn't say anything. That's why I go out early. Shiro teased his friends. So, Midoriya, you were sad since yesterday? Izuku sad? Uraraka raised her head as Iida entered the room. It's nothing. Izuku says. No, you have to tell us. You already started. Mina says. Her name was also short enough to try remembering. It's really nothing big. He tries to reassure them. I just heard everyone talking about how good the food lunch rush makes it, and I guess that made me sad. Why? Todoroki asked. I can't taste it. What? Naught is a passive-active quirk. Ever since its first activation, it hasn't stopped and it comes with drawbacks. They call it the self-annihilation syndrome. I'm losing bits of myself like my sense of taste a couple months ago. He explained. It's a progressive drawback. The darkness you know is deeper than anything I can imagine. Tokoyami admitted. All right, everyone settle down. Aizawa-sensei walked into the classroom looking more annoyed than usual. Today, we'll be doing something important, so think about it carefully. They were to choose a class representative and vice. 20. They elected for Iida Tenya and Yaoyorozu Momo to be the representative and vice. The decision solidified once Iida managed to calm down an entire stampede of students that were panicking over the breach alarm. Izuku came to class late afterwards helping Recovery Girl with some students that had gotten injured during the fiasco. Still, things seemed to be doing all right. They were going to the unforeseen joint simulation for rescue training soon and had to get changed. Izuku's coat was still being patched up after Bakugo's attack, so he had less items he could carry. His weapons had finally arrived today and he decided to bring them along for Aizawa-sensei to inspect later. He supposed that was the best decision he would make that day. Villains attacked the USA. 21. Teacher and student tied their hair back in almost ceremonial manner. It started as a simple challenge Midoriya proposed during training when he pointed out the tell. Midoriya, stay here. Eraserhead ordered once he got his goggles on as the former vigilante pulled on the hood. The boy doesn't say anything as his teacher jumps into the fray, grabbing the folds of his capture weapon and letting them fly like strings. His classmates moved towards the door, the black mist blocking their way. His blank eyes roamed around to find an opening on his form. Before he could act, however, two of his classmates had moved to attack and the mist spread out to move anyone who was out of 13's reach, warping them away. Except for Midoriya. For instance, I'm going to help Aizawa-sensei, he announced. 13 doesn't pause from their stance protecting the students, but they do incline their body ever so slightly towards the boy. It's the first time he's truly asking to do something. All right, I've got it handled here. Give Erasure a breather. Midoriya nodded, moving quickly to the edge of the stairs and jumped like his mentor did. The thing about training is that both sides, the teacher and student, are able to learn from each other through their shared experience and knowledge. As Aizawa had refined Gintonic's fighting style, Midoriya had redefined Eraserhead's quirk. He has a secondary mutation that accompanied his Erasure quirk. He is also able to cancel out his own gravity. Hence why he's able to stay in the air for so long or get so high in the first place when he jumps. As such, he developed a higher sense of acrobatics just like his own student, with a similar need for flexibility. 22. He starts out hand-to-hand, taking the other half of villains alongside his teacher who barely looks his way, but the familiar annoyed click of his tongue acknowledges his presence on the field. Of course, the problem child doesn't listen the one time he actually needed him to. The kid was wearing these new weights, arm and leg guards that look thicker than the last ones, but somehow, he still moves fast. He starts to understand what those weights are for when a villain with a sharp quirk moved towards him and her claws slid off the metallic arm guard. Having trained together, the two were practically in sync and were cutting down the crowd quickly. This won't do at all. The pale man said. That can't be a normal NPC. Did I ask this a glitch? Double Eraserheads. One is cool enough. I'll have to get rid of one to fix it. He moves forward, fingers splayed out to be used. The mini eraser dodges to the side, then ducks down into a split and takes off one of the weights around his leg in one smooth motion, rolling it up instantly with an audible click. He dodges the next attempt, rolling up the next weight on his other leg and putting them together. Damn it. Nomu, catch that glitch? The scarf grabs the kid's midsection and immediately pulls him out of the way of the incoming fist. His student rolled up the other two weights and combined them, forming a complete bow staff. 23. Being the human equivalent of Quirk suppression cuffs, Gintonic could redirect and weaken blows by simply being in direct contact with this Nomu. He and Erasure tagged in and out between fighting Mr. Hand Guy and his personal Frankenstein. There were close calls, but with both their hair tied up, eyes hidden and movements too quick, they left no clues or tells. Eraserhead completely uncoiled his scarf, letting it tangle about just partially afloat with his practiced secondary mutation. It's over when he blinks, so they have to move fast. Gintonic scooped up a thread with his bow and threw it over the Nomu's head, then went around, over and under repeatedly. Eraserhead was having a more difficult time with the handman, as it seems his touch is able to disintegrate the capture weapon. Sensei, switch. Gintonic tosses him the bow and takes over the fight against the handman. He's faster than his teacher in dodging and redirecting attacks, angering the villain with every failed attempt to grab onto him. Until he found the one slip-up, the one ticket to ending this farce. The kid tripped and the villain pounced on the opportunity like a hungry lion. All 5 fingers close around the kid's neck. He smiles wide at the contact, then frowns. Nothing happened. Blank eyes, white as snow, stared at him from beneath the hood. Thank you for your foolishness. Gintonic wrenched the hand off his neck and got behind the villain, pushing him forward and leading his open palm to another target. The tangled up Nomu. The fingers make contact and the flesh starts peeling away with large cracks. No! He attempts to pull away, but then a piece of the scarf tangled along both wrists and pressed both palms on the Nomu. Stop. 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 Make it stop. 24. The villains escaped, but at the very least now they have names. That one with the troublesome warping quirk is known as Kurogiri, and the handman that headed the attack is known as Shigaraki. No casualties, one injured teacher and a few small scrapes otherwise. The paramedics are giving him a checkup while Aizawa-sensei stands close by. The hood of his costume disintegrated. Shigaraki got a close enough brush against his cheek, but nothing happened. It doesn't hurt to check at least. All right, it looks like you're clear. The medic announced. Thank you. With that, the medics make their leave. Aizawa-sensei placed a hand on his shoulder, leading him back to the bus to Yue. Nothing is said throughout the journey, but both of them took comfort in each other's presence. They felt the weight of that monster's movements through the air with every dodge. So many times where it got too close, when Naught or Erasure wasn't enough alone. Are you okay? Aizawa-sensei asked him. Yes. He replied, as monotonous as before, but there was something else in his voice. His blank eyes stared down at his shoes, fingers running along the tattered fabric of his hood. Sensei, I think I felt scared. Fear is one of the first things Naught had taken from him. Anger quickly followed. With it, joy was steadily fading too, until he was told Eri thinks of him as a hero. Aizawa didn't know if he should be glad the kid has more emotions or upset those emotions were being invoked by something this traumatic. It was a dangerous situation. That's understandable. No. The boy refuted. I'm not scared for me. I'm nothing. Kid I was scared for you. He clarified. I can take the hits. Naught takes care of that and I'm faster. But if it touched you, if either of them did, you could. Hey, I'm fine. We made it through unscathed. Eraserhead assured him. Today. The man sighed. Yeah, today. 25. Class continued as usual. The announcement for the sports festival has everyone hyped up for preparations. It's an opportunity for the students to show what they've got and for the pros to scout out their next interns. Izuku, let's crush it. The sports festival. Uraraka says with an eager grin and fire in her eyes. I guess if that's the way. Izuku nodded. Okay, let's crush it. Raka. Yeah. She puts her fist up. Come on, let's pound it. He makes his own fist and gives hers a little tap. Yeah. He smiles a little. His classmates are so energized and passionate about the event despite having gone through a pretty shocking incident. The smile is still small but blooms with more sincerity than ever before. And it stays for quite some time. By the end of school, his smile remains unperturbed even in the face of the crowd in front of their classroom. Before Bakugo could say his piece, he stepped forward. Excuse me, I need to get back to my little sister. Could you please make way? Izuku asked the crowd politely. A little sister? A guy with purple hair steps forward. You hero courses always this family-oriented? Oh. Azui moves her way around the crowd. I gotta pick up the youngest from kindergarten. Excuse me. Ah. Todoroki nodded. My sister just texted me some groceries to get for dinner. Hey. The purple-haired guy faltered momentarily as some of the Class 1A students were already occupying themselves with errands they had to run for their families. If there's nothing else, would you mind stepping aside? Izuku asked him. Don't think this is over yet. The purple-haired kid said. Depending on the results of the sports festival, students can be transferred in and out of the hero class. This is a declaration of war. Okay. Izuku walks past him without another word. 26. He had planned to train as usual, but when Eri overheard about the sports festival, she got curious and asked him what it was about. They went through a lot of footage of previous sports festivals until they stumbled upon one that featured Aizawa-sensei when he was a student and he made it to the top. Wow, you'll get to the top too, right Aizu? That was the trigger. The spark that lit up his empty eyes. His self-imposed improvement training started right after that. Aizawa wouldn't say he wasn't glad for the motivated move, but he made no move to give the kid any more assistance than what he'd already done. The boy can hold his own, fought side by side with his own teacher. If he's finally decided to be more like his age, then he had no issue with it. Because despite everything, he was still just a kid. 15 years isn't a long time to have been alive, and 28 sounded too soon. He made sure the kid ate his meals at the very least. He's a lot more determined than he gave the kid credit for. There's still time, he thought to himself as he observed the kid's exercises, Eri cheering him on. 27. The day of the sports festivals goes as you'd usually expect. Kids lining up to prove themselves, the pros scouting out their intern sidekicks, the media clamoring to get their one-in-a-lifetime chance to cover one of the biggest events in Japan yet. On this day, Midoriya had decided he would be first place. He decides against fully revealing the extent of Naught, as Erasure had suggested would make people more wary of him in the first and second stages. The third stage should be where he utilizes that extent to its highest, but even then, to keep more cards hidden up his sleeves. Midoriya. Blank eyes looked up at his fellow classmate curiously. Simply speaking, your quirk is everyone's foil. Even to himself, but Todoroki doesn't say that part. You're on par with Aizawa-sensei in terms of combat, and I saw you both defeat the Nomu. I'm not going to pry into that, but I'm going to beat you. Whoa, Todoroki's getting personal. Denki says. That won't work. Yo, Midoriya with a hit back. Siro hooped. I promised Eri I would take first place. Ah, the sibling promise. Very sacred, Karo. Tsuyu nodded sagely. If you're really going to fight me, then you better give it your all. He tells them. I won't fall. Now we're talking. Kirishima grinned. Everyone. Izuku addressed the room without blinking. Let's do our best. 20. Izuku paid no heed to the cheering crowd, nor the cries of outrage when Kaken decided to rile up his opponents with his short speech. No, his attention is more to the competition. They announced the first challenge. An obstacle race. That's doable, even without his quirk, he's sure to be able to. Todoroki has just frozen everyone to the ground. He sighed, casually stepping out of the ice. So much for keeping Naught hidden for a while longer. He keeps a steady pace ahead of most of the other contestants, his classmates and 1B already making their own way forward with their own quirks. He catches the eye of that 1C student from that day while dodging the robot attacks, and promptly picks him up. Hey, what are you doing? The kid he has yet to learn his name yelled at him. Izuku doesn't answer, simply keeping the boy over his shoulder as he ran across the debris and allowed others to take down the bots themselves. What's happening over there? Present Mike says over the mic. Is that student injured? What lovely sportsmanship. Damn it. Using me for your little good deed show, huh? Put me down. I can run my own race. But as usual, he's ignored. Typical. Someone from 1C clicked their tongue. Of course that's how he's getting through the race. Hey, I'm serious here. The boy gritted his teeth. Put me down. The boy slows down just shy of the minefield and stops momentarily to look around. Put me down. He does put him down. What the hell is your problem? Shinso hissed. Blank eyes stared at him, unblinking. He raised one hand and pointed at the Gen Ed student. Purple. We had a student with purple hair in our class. He's been expelled. You can take his place. Izuku looked back at the minefield. Bakugo had flown over. Todoroki was freezing his steps. He hadn't even noticed they were in the lead before. Follow my steps, okay? Okay. Midoriya made it to third place, Shinso as fourth. 29. Hey! A hand landed on his shoulder and Shinso nearly jumped out of his skin on instinct. Do you want to be in a team with me? He blinks in surprise, not expecting to be asked like that. He looks behind his kidnapper who already has two other members behind him. Sure, I guess. Hi. The brown-haired girl waved at him. You're Izuku's new friend, right? I'm Uraraka Ochako. You. I'm Shinso Hitoshi. Hatsume. Another girl grabbed his arm. Future CEO of Hatsum Industries, I can't wait to test out my babies with you. Midoriya Izuku. You can call me Izuku. Blank eyes say. Sorry in advance, I forget names really easily. Just call me Mei then. Ah, Hitoshi. Mei. Raka. He nodded at the two girls but then stared quietly at Shinso. What? Sorry, Shinso-kun. Ochako whispered to him. Could you maybe shorten your name? If you don't, Izuku is gonna take forever to try remembering it. He raised a brow at the odd detail. If it's so hard for you to remember names, how the hell did you even join the hero course with that kind of memory? Eri insisted. My memory is only bad at names. Izuku clarified calmly. Shinso clicked his tongue. Fine. Is Toshi short enough for you? Raka. Mei. He paused and Shinso was about to call it quits when Izuku did something unexpected. He smiled. Toshi. What's your quirk? 30. Midoriya takes the front position. Carrying Shinso over his back is no issue for him. Mei introduced them to a number of interesting items to use, the boys taking what they deemed would be of most help for their situation. Mei on the right, Ochako on the left, Shinso as the main rider and Midoriya at the front. They're practically the group with the smallest body types visually, but that's only on the surface. The group played it safe, dodging the other cavalry and keeping out of the main fight. Mei used a grappling tool to snag a couple headbands, but it wouldn't be enough. It was then the groups who lost all their points turned their attention to them as time was running out. Toshi. Midoriya doesn't turn to look at him, but his voice is clear. Are you ready? The purple-haired boy looks at the wave of quirks thrown their way. Yes. Mei. Raka. Fly. Jetpacks activated, Midoriya gives his group a boost and tosses them up into the sky. The combined wave of quirk attacks converge upon the lone boy on the ground and create a small explosion that kicks up smoke and dust off the ground. There's a murmur going around the stadium, and just before the teachers could stop the game, a voice shouted in the sky. Hey, they look like ants. Shinso with a megaphone grinned as they all looked up and opened their mouths. Seriously, Dash. The hell is Dash? Uncouth Dash. Bruh Dash. Several students from multiple groups froze in place. Stay still until the end of the match. Like a bullet through smoke, Midoriya shoots out of the corner, arm bracers and a staff in hand. He moves quickly, leaping over, vaulting across players and sliding under larger players as he swipes away points from their dazed teammates. He doesn't keep them to himself, instead throws them around at random, before charging up to his original target. Todoroki snapped out of it with a spark of fire and set a roar of flame at the approaching runner. Shuto! Midoriya jumps through the volley of fire, snagging the 1,000,000 points right off of Todoroki's head. He lands on the ground neatly. Thank you. He places the points between his teeth and runs over to the other side of the arena. Wake up! At Shinso's command, the contestants were awoken from their dazed state and his own team landed safely where Midoriya could catch them. They were already too far for the others to try to attack, so each team scrambled to pick up the points strewn on the ground. This alone led to 2 teams suffering elimination for dropping their riders. It didn't matter to Team Midoriya. They were already headed to the final event. 31. During lunch break, Midoriya broke off from his team as they started chatting and celebrating. Shinso looked a bit flustered as the girls dragged him away to get refreshments, but he's sure he'll be fine. As for himself, Todoroki had requested to talk to him personally in private. He couldn't imagine what his classmate wanted to speak to him about. Are you Aizawa-sensei's secret love child? This was not what he expected. No. He's Ace. Apparently, this answer was not what Todoroki expected. Oh. The blunt reaction elicits a long unfamiliar feeling Midoriya hasn't felt in a while. Heh. His mind goes over the lines again, tickling him with small, rare giggles. He calms himself and looks back at Todoroki's still surprised expression. He hadn't laughed in a while. Is there something more you want to tell me? Todoroki schools his expression. Do you know my father, Endeavor? 32. Izuku isn't sure what to feel about Todoroki's story, nor does he know what the proper reaction would be. He simply reaffirmed his challenge and told him what he thought was appropriate. Ideally, his opinions shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, Todoroki's opinion would be the decider. Lunch break ends and the students are gathered up again for the next event. A one-on-one match. Opponents are matched up by name and the winner moves on to the next round. The first match would be Iida Shiozaki versus Midoriya Izuku. The matchup is interesting, Shinso thought. Someone with the power of vines she could grow at will and move them as she pleased, against what is essentially an immovable object, an impenetrable tank. Although Midoriya is admittedly extremely high in his defense, it wouldn't do him any good if those vines were to catch him and push him out of the ring, or just immobilize him. Fighters to your corners. Present Mike announced. Even the loveliest flowers have thorns, Iida Shiozaki from the hero course. She steps up to the arena, hands clasped in prayer. I hope that you will seek salvation. She says to her opponent. Against. With eyes white as snow, Midoriya Izuku from the hero course. Wait, is he smiling? It's small, barely noticeable for most, but it's there. Midnight can't help her curiosity and asked. Why are you smiling, Midoriya? I'm not fighting my teammates from the cavalry battle. I'm glad. The brightness from his smile has people squinting and the vines on Shiozaki's hair got thicker. That's so sweet that I like it. Midnight declared. Fighters ready? Begin. He dodges the wave of vines that rush him. Through a review of some of the previous live clips, it seems the camera didn't quite catch exactly what his quirk could do. For now they probably believe he has high defense strength or is at least fireproof from the cavalry battle. He knows the vine girl wants to push or pick him up, but the moment those vines touch him, his ruse would be revealed. He manages to exhaust her vines and get up close enough to throw her out of the ring. She had enough vines left to catch her fall. Shiozaki is out. Izuku wins. 33. The following matches resulted in wins for Todoroki, Bakugi, Iida, Shinso, Kirishima and Tokoyami. No matter the matchup, he would be fighting a friend or classmate within some capacity. 10. Midoriya sighed, facing his friend. He takes a proper stance. This will be good for us. Don't go easy on me, Midoriya. Iida gets low. Fighters ready? Begin. Recipro burst. Iida's engines sparked to life, immediately giving him a rapid boost as he rushed towards Midoriya. He ends up behind the boy, ready to grab him and push him out of bounds. Midoriya turns sharply, catching his arm and twisting his whole body. The momentum takes them to the ground and his legs snake around Iida's neck, catching him in a headlock. Iida activates his engines again, trying to break out of the hold, but they were significantly weaker than before. He's not sure if it's due to the lack of air from the headlock or something else entirely. He manages to get on his feet, trying to lift up his trapped arm, but Midoriya twists again, bringing him back down and tightening his hold. He was going to pass out at this rate. His engines are weak and he knows they're getting weaker, his vision is starting to blur. He taps Midoriya's arm. He exhales in air as he's released, coughing slightly when he does it too fast. Midoriya pats his back, rubbing circles. Is everything all right there? Midnight asked. I surrendered. Iida admitted with another cough. Then I'll announce it. She nods. Tenya is out. Izuku wins. 34. Bakugo, Todoroki and Shinso qualify for the next rounds. Bakugo and Shinso were a bad match from the start. The latter had collected enough material to rile up the former, resulting in an easy win for him. Now all that's left is the match between Midoriya and Todoroki. Honestly, he doesn't know which one is worse. Todoroki was a powerhouse on his own, but Midoriya had crazy fast reflexes and was totally fireproof. However, Todoroki mainly utilizes his ice more anyways, and nearly every opponent he's faced has been frozen like an ice cube whenever the match barely starts. It's clear he'll be using the same tactic again with Midoriya. So, let's see how you deal with this hurdle, Midoriya. Having tough skin in a literal sense isn't flashy, but it sure as hell seemed useful. The ice-cold prince of the hero course, Todoroki Shudo. Have you given what I said any thought? Midoriya asked him. The immovable, untouchable, unexpected super tank also of the hero course, Midoriya Izuku. I have. The wall of ice grows up to the skies as it did in previous matches and shatters completely. Shuto. Midoriya puts his fist down and walks forward, the shattered ice merely fragments of frost under his feet. Todoroki tries again and it shatters. A third time and it shatters. That's not going to work. Midoriya says, now closer than any of his opponents had ever gotten. Todoroki rushes ahead, making a ramp of ice to get some height, coating one arm thickly as he jumps up. Midoriya doesn't look up when he dodges sharply at the last second. The blank-eyed boy gets lower and performs a 360 kick, hitting Todoroki in the head and forcing him to the floor. An ice pillar grows. Todoroki looks down from the safety of his height as he gathers his bearings. Blank eyes are staring right at him. You're shivering. Midoriya states. Shuto. Fog escapes his lips as he breathes. The expression Midoriya was wearing is limited due to the effects of his quirk, but the concern was obvious. You're making me worried. I'm worrying you? Your quirk is hurting you and you can fix it. He wasn't insinuating what he thinks, is he? Please don't hurt yourself with your quirk. Midoriya says. Don't be like me. Todoroki makes a choice. 35. Todoroki opens his eyes. The sensation of someone embracing him feels oddly foreign. Midoriya? The boy holding him loosens his hold and looks at him. Tears streamed down his face silently as he stared at his classmate with wide, worried eyes. The drawbacks of Naught are severe, he knows this. It's already muted most of Midoriya's emotions, and for the first time, the boy was crying. For him. For his circumstances, his quirk, his father. So many things he wanted to but couldn't express. Todoroki had struggled, pinned, and desperately tried to get Midoriya off. He used his left side in that moment to burn his friend, and he's never been more grateful for the invulnerability his friend has. They were both out of bounds, but Todoroki had passed out due to a sudden change in temperature. The win was granted to Midoriya. His tears continued into his next match. Fighters ready? Begin. Shinso looked at him silently as he rubbed the back of his neck. Hey, you good? I'm all right. Midoriya responded in the same tone as ever, but tears were still streaming down his face. Shinso's eye twitched. You sure about that? You could sit this out. No. Midoriya was walking towards him. What the f are you? Why isn't this working? Shinso says in a slight panic as the other boy gets closer. Because I am nothing. He stands face to face with Shinso now. I don't want to break any of your bones. It would be unpleasant. You don't exactly have the right muscle mass to fight me. No sheet. Shinso scoffed. At least tell me how you're doing this. It's my quirk. He answered, using one hand to gently push him out bounds. Naught. 36. The awards ceremony goes by without a hitch, Midoriya crowned as the champion of the sports festival while mainly using his own physical skills over his quirk. That was about 10 minutes ago, and now he was sitting on a bench next to a vending machine. He looked at his new friend, who was looking at the second-place medal with shining eyes. Toshi, he called, a juice box in hand. Yeah, we're going to be classmates, he stated. I guess we are. He nodded absently before the full consequences of today rammed into him like a freight train. Holy shit, I'm getting into the hero course. Shinso ran a hand through his hair. This isn't a dream. Do you need a pinch? Yeah, actually OW. Heh. The rare little giggle trickles like a faucet, dripping, restrained yet so valuable on its own. I guess I'll have to actually start working out more if I'm going to keep up. Shinso muttered. Do you need any help? Midoriya asked him. Maybe. He considered it. Just don't kidnap me like before. You're very easy to carry. After a little more chatter, a surprising bit of back and forth, Shinso says his goodbye and promises to see him in class. Midoriya watches him go, staying seated on the bench. The day goes by, the sun starts to set. Kid! Someone calls out. Silenced and measured steps, padded boots. The kid looked up at him with the same blank expression. Aizawa-sensei. He greeted him. Shouldn't you be back in your dorm? Eri would be asking for you. He says. She's staying with Recovery Girl today. She fell asleep after all the excitement. Hasn't woken up yet. Midoriya looks back down at his hands, Makita no move to leave the bench. It's been roughly a few months since he's had to personally train his problem child. A couple weeks since the kid admitted to feeling fear again. He knows him well enough by now, the fidgeting of his fingers and low, muted mutters under his breath. He fiddles with the metal around his neck quietly. What's this about Izuku? Can I call my mom? He looks back up at his mentor, his white eyes don't look so haunting and empty anymore. Of course. 37. He should get the kid a good phone. One that's hard to track and stocked full of failsafes. He's sure Nedza might have a spare, or he could get Majima to make one. Only problem would be the copyright issues with phone production companies. He leaned against the wall near the payphone, watching as Midoriya dialed in a number he never forgot but never called in a long time. He notices the moment the call clicks and Midoriya stiffens. Hello. Hi, Mom. Izuku. His mother gasped. Oh, Aizu, I saw everything. You were amazing. I have it all recorded and saved. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw you taking the lead at the race. Oh, and that poor boy you picked up. Izuku, that's not how we make friends. Heh, but he's my friend now. Really? That's good. His mother cheered. How are you? I saw so many amazing quirks. The smile he usually keeps restrained starts to bloom. His eyes shone with a light Aizawa has never seen before aside from old pictures. He literally lit up talking about all the quirks he saw with his mom, from the staff to every student. He was going a mile a minute with his hands starting to move around with expressive gestures. Around the corner, he knows that the other staff are watching just beyond the wall. Eri's there too, hands over her mouth to silence a gasp as they watched Izuku go on about all the quirks. And there's this little girl here. She has an incredible quirk called Rewind, and she called me her hero. Izuku trailed off, his smile starting to wane. You are a hero. Eri shouted, bursting from the corner and running towards them. Izumu. Eri. She smashes into his waist, hugging him tightly. Izuku, who's there? The boy looks between the girl, the phone, and Aizawa. He nods at him. Mom, this is Eri, the little girl I told you about. He lowers the phone. Hello, I'm Eri. While her voice was still soft, her excitement was clear. Are you Izumu's mama? His mother laughed fondly at the little voice. Yes, I am. You say my son is a hero. Why? He saved me. Eri said cheerfully and gives a childishly exaggerated tale of how Izuku rescued her from bad guys. The staff have heard this version many times before but would never be bored of it. The sports festivals have given them all many good surprises. 30. He heard the news about Ingenium. He's not sure what to feel about it, but he is concerned in a way. The hero killer has caused quite a number of fatalities and terrible injuries in the hero community. Statistically, crime rates have gone down in the cities he strikes. Midoriya. He blinks back into focus. Key. You haven't presented your codename. His yellow-haired friend said. Ah. He's already written it down and goes up to the podium. This is what the forums named me after a few nights. Gintonic. That's. Uraraka trailed off before her eyes widened. That was you. Midoriya, you're a vigilante? So you asked. For a while. He confirmed. The class erupted in more noise, but he didn't mind. It's actually nice how lively it is. Kaken was looking at him strangely. He doesn't understand why or what. Well, that certainly settles your naming issue. Midnight sighed. 39. Midoriya, come with me. As soon as the names were settled, everyone started talking about which agency to join and what they hoped to learn from it. Midnight could supervise the class while he and his mentor stepped out. Despite getting first place and the loads of offers sent to him, he had his mind set elsewhere. He follows his teacher dutifully. He has been given a pass for the day for whatever he was being summoned for. He has memorized the layout of the building and knew they were heading to a meeting room. Aizawa-sensei stops short at the door. Before we go in, I want you to understand that you are under no obligation to say yes to anything we discuss in this room. Do you understand? Yes. His mentor appraises him for a moment before finally opening the door. There are quite a number of people gathered in the meeting room. He recognizes the detective and a few heroes in the room. Their quirks were primarily clocked in his mind as he categorized them. This is him. A tall, lanky man addresses them. The one who took the girl. Something ticked in his mind at such callous words. Her name is Eri. The lanky man took a half step back. Of course, my apologies. You are the one who rescued Eri? Yes. He replied. Sir Knight, please let the kid sit before you interrogate him. The detective said. Izuku stared at him for a long time. Hello, detective. Hello, Izuku. The detective sighed. I saw how you did at the sports festival. Good job. Thank you. He says as he takes his seat. His teacher doesn't sit far. There's a scowl on his face that says he doesn't like where this was going. To surmise the whole meeting, Izuku is given the full story of the Shy Hasakai and the successful raid that shed light upon Eri's situation. From the experimentation and attempts at making a quirk-canceling drag. They had been close to making a permanent sample, but then little Eri snuck away and Izuku had found her. 3 of their main members are still at large, including Chisaki Kai himself. There are alerts all over the city for their arrest, and we're here to ensure that you are protected. They don't know it's Gintonic that took Eren, yet we can never be too careful. The detective said, I don't usually do this, but we can ascertain what protections are necessary if you would let me see your future. Sir Nighteye said, I understand it is perceived that the nature of your quirk renders all things in relation to quirks completely, or at least at part, muted. Midoriya simply nodded. Every adult in the room felt uneasy just by how easily the child agreed. 40. There was nothing. For the first time, Sasaki truly felt and saw nothing at all. Not as aptly named it seems. All the more reason the child needs to be more guarded. Him and Eraserhead would both be targets. They sent Midoriya back to his class, and then came Eraserhead's turn. Let them take me. Are you insane? The detective asked. We can use this. If they keep their eyes on me, we can track them back to their base of operations and shut it down once and for all. The man says, Aizawa, do you understand what you're asking to do? He and the detective had worked together through numerous cases before. They were somewhat good friends. They're not gonna let up after this long. He says, look, it's either me or they take the kids. A silence takes over the room, every critical eye contemplating all the possibilities. You are being uncharacteristically reckless. The principal pointed out. Reckless? He echoed, reviewing his words. I suppose so. But if you've seen the future, then what would this change? We can't do that. Sir Nighteye shakes his head, fully reminded why he didn't want to use his quirk often. We'll find another way. You talk about finding another way when you couldn't even get through to Midoriya. Hell, he couldn't do anything to help Midoriya. Erasure is ineffective against Naught. They did x-rays, tried medically prescribed suppressants, specialized cuffs, but as its name, nothing worked. There was nothing that could indicate the presence of a quirk, not even by tracing the gene lineage. They ended their discussion there, to be picked up another time. 41. His internship this time is more of a request from his homeroom teacher. Apparently Ten applied for a rather mediocre agency in Hosu. It was fine as long as he was wearing a tracker and his new suit was vastly different from his usual vigilante getup. He's currently under another underground hero known as Mr. Brave. They've done a number of tests with Mr. Brave before. Weapons and objects made with quirks cannot be used by Gintonic. They only turned back into regular hair, and wasn't that a creepy sight to behold? A couple more tests with Nomu backed up the findings. Anything made with quirks that come into contact with him is set back into its prior state or disassembled at his touch. Their patrol reached well into the evening. Everything seemed all right. But the moment the sun slips into the horizon, all hell breaks loose. Nomu, the bioengineered monsters he saw at USJ, were attacking the city. Mr. Brave, permission? He asked as he adjusted his wrist and ankle weights. The man grunted, making himself another weapon as one of the Nomus spotted him. Granted, but focus on evacuating the civilians. He needed no more than that to get moving. As the underground hero tackled the Nomu, he started directing the people away from the streets. One girl required a bit of aid as her foot had been trapped by some debris. He lifted her up without question and took her somewhere safe to be treated. Once he deemed the distance was good enough, he started taking out his medical gear. 42. It seems to be sprained, he said as he checked her leg. Have I met you before? The girl asked. Maybe. I'm Gintonic. He applies the instant cold pack over the ankle and lifts up her leg. Excuse me. Wow. You've got some new threads, huh? I really thought you died. It was almost a shame. She sang, wriggling her toes. She peeks at his low hood and yup, those white eyes Dobby mentioned are there. Please don't move too much. He secures the cold pack with an elastic bandage and keeps the foot on his lap. We will have to wait a few minutes for the ice to take care of the swelling. Do you need anything else? Blood. What type? I wait just like that? The girl giggled hysterically. You'll really give me some blood? If that is what you need. His tone and expression doesn't change. So what type? The girl contemplates this for a good long minute. Can I have yours? Directly? Yeah. She smiled wide, showing off her fangs. I see. You have a unique dietary requirement. He removes the arm brace with an audible click and rolls back a sleeve. I will give a fair warning, my quirk makes all other quirks null at any contact. I'm not sure how ingesting my blood will affect you, so I'd simply advise you to proceed with caution. She pulls his arm closer. Yeah, I'll be careful. He doesn't say anything when she takes a bite and laps the flowing blood with her tongue. She stops for a moment, her brows furrowed in confusion. Gintonic placed a metal dish under his arm so blood wouldn't be wasted. Are you all right? He asked. I'm good. She says slowly. Your blood is filling. She means it too. I'm Himiko Toga. I'm sorry, I'm bad at remembering new names. He says. Just Toga then. Toga. Cute. She purred, taking the dish and having a sip. You're really weird, no one's ever let me have blood so easily. He shrugged, taking his arm back to bandage it. Do you need anything else? Toga stares at him for a while, not really smiling, but she is curious. Are you a hero now? I am enrolled in the course now, yes. But you were already such a good vigilante. She says. Like that medicine you gave Dobby. It really worked, he looks better lately. Do you have any more? No, I'm sorry. You shouldn't apologize so much. Just tell me the brand and I'll find it. She said. You won't. He said. I developed it myself and I haven't gotten the time to make more. You made them? He nods this time. 15 minutes are up and a shadow flew overhead that looked distinctively disfigured. Toga, I have to go now. Will you be okay here? I'm fine. Go be a hero or whatever. She waved him goodbye as he sprinted off. 43. Finding 10 was a pure coincidence, but one he was glad to have stumbled upon. So here he was, in an isolated alleyway with 2 immobilized victims. He keeps his gaze on the hero killer, but his body is aimed low, angled protectively over the younger Ingenium and directed at the paralyzed hero native who's slumped against the wall. Izuku? Another hero brat. Stain felt his hand tremor from the hit and adjusted his grip. Gintonic. The new brat says, "During work, we must use our code names. I remember you now." He flecks off the fresh blood on his blade with a flick of his wrist. "The brat who stole my prey before. The silver bullet, Gintonic. These 2 are now under my care. I have to take them to EMTs." He says calmly, "I strongly urge you to comply. Didn't agree before, won't now." Stain takes another step forward. The hero killer rushes him, but he dove forward, taking 10 with him and set him next to native. He used his wrist braces to block the sword coming down on him and his other hand to stop the second. Stain utilizes his quirk in order to complete his goals, but the fact is, Gintonic earned the title of Silver Bullet in the underground for a good reason. Stain's quirk, Blood Curdle, is ineffective against Naught. The silver bullet is the reason why some of those fatalities never reached past 5 before, and that most of the heroes he injured were going to recover. In the underground, Stain is considered a monster and Gintonic is the silver bullet. 44. Iida is still having a hard time trying to move. He watched uselessly on the sidelines as Midoriya blocked and dodged several slashes. He has cuts all over but doesn't falter in the slightest. Iida wondered idly if Naught had already taken away his friend's reception to pain. They give you a new costume, new equipment, and you dare stand with these fakes? Stain growled. "You could have been great, Jin." "I don't need to be great," he says with a slight huff. "I just have to do what I need to. Fighting for them? It's pointless." "I know." He gets a hit in, kicking him in 3 places and driving the hero killer back with a firm roundhouse kick. "And I am nothing." Stain snarls, twisting the blade and lunging forward again. A wave of blue flames creates a wall between them, separating the heroes and the hero killer. "Toga said you went this way." A heavily scarred man walks into the alley, blue fire liking off of his skin. "I haven't even paid you back, Jin. You've been using the cream." The former vigilante gives him a small smile upon seeing the improved skin around his face primarily. "I really don't want to be fighting you, Stain, especially not with Silver Bullet here." The man turns to the villain in question. "I'm no saint either, but I'd rather leave no debts unpaid." "Leave," Gintonic says, finding his stance again. The hero killer looks between both the scarred man and the Silver Bullet, then sheathes his swords. "You're enrolled already, Gintonic. The next time this happens, you won't be here to save them." Stain says as he backs away. The meaning of a hero has long been twisted by this tainted world. But you might just be what they need. You're a silver bullet, that alone is fatal enough for all manners of monsters. 45. Before long, the effects of the quirk wore off. The scarred man had left without a word and the 3 of them made it back to the main street to get their injuries sorted properly. "Are you sure you should be walking around, kid?" Native asked. "I can walk," the currently probably still bleeding child said, covered in a rather concerning amount of blood. "Midoriya." 10 bowed low. "I'm sorry. I got you wrapped up in my problems and put you in danger. If it weren't for you, I could have dashed." He stilled as the other hugged him. "I'm glad you're alive." 10 started to cry as he hugged him back. Then Gintonic went limp. "Midoriya." "I'm fine." "You're clearly not." Both Ingenium and Native say as they pick him up. They ran into Endeavor's sidekicks and Shudo had just taken down a flying Nomu by himself. Surrounded by the comfort of the noise from his friends panicking and fussing, to the sidekicks calling for medics, Izuku let himself slip into slumber. 46. A video about Stain has gotten pretty viral, of his speech while going toe-to-toe with a vigilante-turned-hero in training, Gintonic. It looks like there are a lot of positive reviews of his new costume. Some were criticizing UA for enrolling a vigilante into the program, others were praising them. Other titles such as Silver Bullet and Stains Chosen were being thrown around as well. He was building a reputation and he hadn't even meant to do so. I can't be an underground hero at this rate. Midoriya sighed. During a sparring session with his mentor. You don't have to be one. Aizawa says. You've already got a reputation in the underground, it's only now that you've gotten the daylight's attention. Either way, you'll still be a hero. As long as you focus on what's important. Midoriya nods. He could see the moment a thought came across his mind as the boy lowered his stance. Can I call my mom again? Aizawa doesn't hide his smile this time. Of course. He doesn't sit by the payphone this time, the kid deserved his privacy. The time for his patrol would be coming up soon. He decides to go early, the kid will catch up later. 47. Izuku looked up, the hallway was empty and for some reason, that fills him with great unease. Izuku. His mother's voice doesn't waver his suspicions or paranoia. I'm going to have to call you back later, Mom. He says a little absently. He looked up at the nearest camera and gave the sign for danger. Before long, UA had unleashed their lockdown protocols at 11 p.m. and all available staff were on high alert. Hound dogs swept the grounds meticulously but found nothing amiss. Mike swapped through the underground channels for any news while Midnight and Snipe covered the roofs. Vlad King, Lunch Rush and All Might went through the buildings just in case. Everything was accounted for, except for one of their wards and a staff member who hasn't reported in. Eri sat patiently in the nice principal's office having a tea party with him and all the plushies she could bring with her. They've given her a lot of crayons, coloring books and puzzles to distract but she knows better. Izuku said it was an emergency and she was going to stay safe in the office while he chased away the monsters. For the first time, she's really calm. She's confident that nothing could hurt Izuku, not even Chisaki. Gintonic ran over the rooftops, tracking over one of Eraserhead's usual patrol routes. He'd given the sign to the principal, changed and told Eri to be safe. All before immediately hitting the streets. The uneasiness grew, a long-forgotten feeling filling him to the brim. Dread. He ran, like he did as a child towards an unreachable goal. Like a bird through a dreadful storm. Like humans that resist fate. He ran with anger, fear and anguish burning behind his eyes. Tears sprang forth with every step he took. All of those things no longer matter in the long run, screaming doesn't matter, nor does shaking or fearing. He hears thunder overhead. The sound rumbles briefly but deeply. Like a faraway roar of foreboding. The wind blows, rain drizzles down and with it are tattered pieces of very familiar fabric. He's been running from the start, to the end of his purest dreams and now, as he watches his bloody and bound mentor be loaded into an ominously black van, he runs with an emptiness that continues to grow. It's almost laughable how one moment could stretch for so long like an eternity and at the same time, eternity can pass by in only a moment. The van was speeding off and he still runs after it despite the illogical probability of him ever catching up. It's pointless. And yet, 48. Thunder roars above, louder than it should be to be heard through the walls of the van. His long hair is mixed with blood, caked against his skin as his eyes are covered with the last remaining pieces of his capture weapon. He's still being affected by that time quirk, slowing his movements to a painful crawl. He wonders how his students were doing at home, if they were taking his assignments seriously. He wonders if Shinso would accept the training he offered to do with Midoriya. He wondered if Midoriya had finished his call with his mother, what they talked about and if Eri had been tucked into bed. I'm sure you understand why we must do this, Erasure. The one with the time quirk, chronostasis, nudged his leg. Our usual supply has been disrupted, she ran off but you already knew that. You heroes took what was ours and now, you'll be her replacement. He grimaces at the implications, more enraged that they call the poor girl as a supply like she wasn't anything but. He wants to shout at them, snap back for everything they've done to her, and are going to do to him. The van stops at some point, he's carried out through the heavy rain. The sound of rumbling thunder gives him the only glimpses he has of the outside before he's eventually put away in the deepest corners of their hideouts. When they get inside, they're completely soaked. You're early. A voice he recognized from clips, Chisaki Kai. He hears the man's steps getting closer and feels a hand grab his chin. Didn't I tell you to be careful with potential products? Sorry, boss. The user with the inebriation quirk said, holding a bandaged shoulder where Eraserhead nearly severed the tendons. He didn't make it easy. Get him cleaned up and prepare the labs. Our tools will be arriving soon and will start immediately. Overhaul said. And Didoro. Yeah, boss. In the next moment he hears the sound of flesh tearing, warm blood stains his cheek. Orders are absolute. Chisaki says he could hear the man putting the gloves back on. Someone clean this up. 49. He can still hear the thunder. They've taken off the blinds, wiped his face with a wet cloth and strapped him down to a chair. Chisaki was saying something, adjusting the LTX gloves as chronostasis moved in the background. It roared in his ears, invisible sparks putting his hair on end. Chisaki pushed his head back, strapping it with a leather belt. He's still talking, taunting probably, but Eraserhead doesn't hear his voice. Do you still remember why Izumo forged these blades? The radio device in the room for communications crackled to life. There's a voice none of them recognized speaking through it. Chisaki ordered chronostasis to check on the cameras and for his men to be on alert, to find where the interference was coming from. As for Aizawa, the moment she spoke, he finds himself witnessing a tale of a world that doesn't exist. Thunder struck the building, crackling a wicked and defined green that blows the circuits to their power, cutting off all the cameras and connected devices. But the radio was still on, that unfamiliar and calm voice still narrating a tale they don't see or understand. The remainder of the Shai Hasaikai scrambled to find the attacker through the dark of their own building. In the 2 minutes since the radio was intercepted, their hideout was infiltrated and each member of the 8 bullets were taken down by a flash of silver and green. Chronostasis cursed as he returned to the lab. We're breached, we have to move now. He says. Tiske, how troublesome. He turned back to destroy the radio and froze. The figure is small, wearing a silver lab coat and hood. The gloves are rust green as it unclasps the restraints over Eraserhead. What defeated the 8 bullets, moved past him in the blink of an eye and destroyed everything he's built in an instant. The blank eyes of the silver bullet glanced at him impassively. 50. So, do you still remember why Izumo forged these blades? In their haste to destroy the target, Chisaki Kai completely disassembled his own subordinate who had also struck him with his own time stasis quirk by accident. Gintonic, the silver bullet, was also on his list at the same level as Eraserhead. He should have known that his enrollment in UA would have connected him with the man. Because of a lie. The silver bullet still stands, even when his weapon is completely destroyed, the shards digging into his hands and his blood staining the floor. The boy walks over the mess of blood and gore on the ground, standing before Chisaki with a silent stare. An end that never existed. The boy says nothing, removing his gloves, not caring how some of the shards stuck the fabric into his flesh. He takes the gun hidden inside the holster in the man's jacket. There were only 2 bullets of that quirk erasing agent. 2 shots he wanted to save for himself on a rainy day. We long since strode into their shadow, each step forward one that we can never walk back. The rainy day came and he could even use it. The boy loads the gun and aims. Chisaki curses in his mind as the needle stuck into his neck. The contents empty before the chronostasis wears off and he stumbles with a dreadful look in his eyes. He stares at his hands, tainted with blood and grime, then slowly looks back at that ghost-like boy. Until the last blade, life, is forged into. Jin. Eraserhead looks up from where he's slumped in his chair, just in time to see the boy load the second shot and aim it at himself. Not. Nothing changes. I knew this world was fleeting. He places the gun onto the tray. Both men watched in silent contemplation as the boy with blank eyes moved to pick up his teacher. And yet. Police stormed the labs. Sir Nighteye strode forward to knock out Chisaki. He looks at the chair where Eraserhead was bound, finding the man now free, kneeling on the floor as he embraced Gintonic. The boy himself did not move to return the embrace, only staring blankly into the corner like a doll whose strings were cut, tears flowing freely down his cheeks without a sound. And yet. 51. It's been a week since that incident. Midoriya hasn't been in class since. His drawbacks had progressed and he was being placed under observation in the school dorms for the time being. Their teacher told them that he isn't missing out on any assignments and will be back with them by the time of the finals. Shinso-kun. Uraraka waved him down before he could exit the building. He eyes the group of students approaching him and raises his brow. What's up? He asked what was probably the entire class of 1A. Yaoyorozu just got back the permission form she sent the principal. We have been cleared to visit Midoriya at the dorms. Iida explained. Would you like to join us? No one would really say it, but there's this gnawing feeling of emptiness now their resident human suppressant cuffs is missing. Shinso doesn't even see him during training sessions with Eraserhead, and the guy was practically his secondary mentor in a way. It's in knowing that his drawbacks had progressed without understanding the context behind it. Without any hesitation he answered. Sure. 52. The dorm buildings were much more impressive in person than the pictures provided in the registration forms. It's spacious, with a kitchen and common room to share, bathrooms on each floor, and pretty generous with the private rooms as far as school dorms go. The special dorm Midoriya is in is designated specifically for wards of the school. These were more like apartment buildings and had an assigned pro hero to ensure their safety. The pros go through a scheduled rotation for each few days, and today happened to be their own homeroom teacher, Aizawa-sensei. Make sure not to crowd them or be too loud. Midoriya might react if Eri feels threatened. Aizawa described once they reach the playroom. He knocks on the door and waits patiently for the door to crack a slither. A small girl with long white hair and red eyes peeked between the small opening. Password. Izu is a hero. Aizawa deadpanned. I've brought some of Midoriya's classmates to see him. Is that okay? The little beamed, nodding enthusiastically. The door opens and they find the playroom filled with a toy kitchen set, toy playhouse, plushies, and even a tea party table all set up. There in one of the chairs sits their missing classmate. Izuku. Uraraka greeted as she stepped towards him. How are you? We came to visit. We missed you during training classes too. Kirishima added. Learning hand-to-hand isn't the same without you, bro. Izuku blinked. Raka, zero gravity. Eiji, hardening. Yeah, that's me. You remember me? The red-haired boy asked. The others started filling into the room and Izuku listed their names alongside their quirks. His voice isn't as soft as their first meeting, but it's still very gentle and calm. The class was relieved. I'm glad you still remember us, Midoriya. Shinso said with a smile. When they told us about your drawbacks getting worse, we didn't know what to expect. Clatter. Eri dropped the teapot. Eri-chan? Tsuyu called softly. What's wrong? The little girl became very silent and moved away from the table. She quickly made her way to Aizawa-sensei and clutched his leg. Eri. Izuku got up, but Aizawa picked up the girl and shook his head. You should explain to them your condition, Midoriya. He said as he takes Eri out of the room. Midoriya nodded. Yes, sir. Midoriya? Iida called. What's going on? I remember who you are to me, your names and quirks, what our relations are as classmates and friends, but all the personal memories that accompany these statuses no longer exist. He explained in the same gentle voice and calm manner. It's supposed to be soothing, but the news it accompanied was no less heartbreaking. Then, you don't remember our first day at school? How about the quirk apprehension test? Denki asked. I remember the results of the test, but I don't recall the events. No way. Siro shook his head. What about the sports festival? I've seen recordings, but it seems I can't commit the events to memory. I'm sorry. Shinso looked like he'd been struck as he took a step back with a grimace. You really don't remember? Uraraka asked softly. Not even the entrance exams? You saved me. You don't remember that? Izuku stared at her, as if trying to process what she was saying and searching for the memory. He lowered his head in shame, closed his eyes and shook his head. I'm sorry. 53. Despite his disposition of his drawbacks, the kid had insisted on following Eraserhead through every patrol. He doesn't have the energy to argue and lets the kid tag along. There's an odd development to the kid's quirk. Some kind of speed mutation had evolved from Naught, The kid could reach one end of the street to another in the blink of an eye. Quick as a lightning flash. This makes his patrols rather easier with how quickly he could take down criminals and restrain them. Yet his medical care is still as gentle and patient as ever. There are times he lets the problem child wander off on his own. There's nothing he could do to stop him anyways. He's too fast and Erasure has no effect on Naught. For tonight, he decided to follow after the kid's traces. Just enough to find his problem child speaking with a very high-profile suspect who's been declared missing for a while now. You really don't remember anything, Hajin-kun? Himiko Toga, Quirk, transform. She's able to turn into anyone that she drinks the blood of. There hasn't been any word since her first assault case or any sight of her. I remember your name and dietary requirements. Gintonic stated, drawing blood from his hand and pouring it into the ramen bowl she held. That's too much, Jin-kun. She chided him playfully and pushed away his sleeve. Sorry. He withdrew his hand and wrapped it up in a bandage. You do this every time. Your blood is really filling, so I don't need a lot. She hands him a little carton of strawberry milk and some sausage buns. The exchange is so casual, it made them look like kids trading lunch food. You have to finish it up before you go, okay? Understood. It's really bad, huh? Toga asked after finishing her cup. You say the same things every day and you don't remember yesterday at all. I'm glad you remembered my name, but Izuku, I think I'm worried about you. Eraserhead sighed before jumping down. I feel the same. Sensei. Izuku wanted to get up. Finish your food. We have some time before we go back. He says, looking around idly. Toga doesn't say anything but pulls Gintonic back to sit down and finish his meal peacefully. Are you going to arrest me? She asked. She couldn't help herself. Gintonic said. I had a suspicion. Eraserhead said. There haven't been any reported cases since your first incident. We do suspect you've been behind the mugger killings in some alleyways, but we'll deal with that another time. Are you finished? Yes. Gintonic threw the rubbish into recycle bins. He turns to his mentor. Can you accept another ward? Before Eraserhead could answer, Toga laughed. You're looking out for me? That's so cute. She giggled. I'm kinda wrapped up in something else with Dabi at the moment, so we'll do a rain check on that, okay? Are you sure? Toga nodded confidently. I promise that once we're done, we'll see you again and you'll be safe. Eraserhead takes note of the odd declaration and herded his student away. 54. Izuku. Midoriya. His classmates crowded him as they spotted him at the exam grounds. We missed you so much. Before anyone else, Shinso moved forward and pulled Midoriya into a hug. He lets go and the boy is suddenly pulled into a big group hug by most of classmates. Everyone took turns hugging him, barring Bakugo, who only watched from afar. The explosive boy hasn't said much since they told him about Midoriya's condition. He still doesn't remember much, but Aizawa-sensei said he's starting to remember the day and date. He can remember important information like his lessons and assignments, as well as quirks, but anything more personal becomes lost to him. The exams would be done in pairs, names are drawn out, and each student is set up to go against their examiners, the teachers. Shinso personally had a difficult time trying to get past Midnight and her quirk, especially since brainwashing her didn't really help much in the long run. Getting her to stay in one spot and toughing out the gas to cuff her was the best strategy they had. As for Midoriya and Bakugo, they completed their test in record time. Bakugo was shouting at Midoriya, poking him and screaming before All Might showed up. The moment Bakugo got injured, Midoriya picked him up and suddenly appeared at the exit gate in a blink of an eye. It wasn't even a short distance. But in a single flash of lightning accompanied by the roar of thunder, they were home free. 55. What the hell is wrong with you? Bakugo shoved him back despite his broken arm, cursing through the pain. Taking me out of the fight like that? Just who do you think you are? You think you're better than me, don't you? F you. You were injured, Kaken. Kaken, Kaken, Kaken. He growled. An impressive feat, students. All Might had just arrived to meet them at the gate. You've chosen smartly to dash. Bakugo punched Midoriya before grabbing the collar of his costume. Don't use that nickname when you don't even have the memories for it. You were already a useless Deku, but now you're an actual puppet, you're empty, you're dash. Nothing. Izuku finished, his expression hasn't changed despite the blood running down his nose. I'm glad you understand what I am, Kaken. Even if I don't remember you personally or even my own mother. Seeing you get hurt makes me sad. Bakugo roared, knocking his head against Midoriya's forehead with an audible thunk. He screams, bunching up the costume with his fists and curls in on himself. His entire body shook. He opened his mouth to scream again but was interrupted by a choked sob that clawed at his throat. He struggles to keep the tears at bay but starts coughing over pressure churning inside him. He finally lets go of the costume and crumples to the ground, screaming and sobbing with all his heart for a friend he didn't know he'd lose. He cried with grief over all the clues he'd missed and the way he'd driven the one friend who stuck by him into this husk of a person. The husk sinks to his knees in front of him, crying silently before gently placing a hand over his back. He didn't want this. He didn't mean what he said. He'd take it all back if he could. If it would bring Izuku back. Bring back his best friend. Bring back the boy whose eyes shone even through all the pain and hardship. Who smiled even in sadness. Bakugo spent a long time processing the essential death of his friend, the one who perished alongside his childhood dreams. 56. Preparations were being made for their summer camp. The class agreed to go out to buy necessities. They managed to get Midoriya to come along too and even helped him list down what he might need. Hey nerd, where the heck are you going? Bakugo, who somehow tagged along, yelled at a dazed-looking Midoriya. I think I'm supposed to get a flashlight here, but I don't remember the brand my mom recommended. He said, give me the DMN list. He yanked the paper out of his hands and went over it. Auntie wants you to get the ones that are like a FING circus spotlight. People go blind if you use them. Oh. Come, air before you get lost. Bakugo dragged him along by the wrist. They walk around the mall, getting to a few stores for proper camping flashlights, some flares under Auntie's insistence and plenty of stock for his first aid kit and emergency kit. Despite everything, Midoriya was never short on his most important supplies in his costume. Since his primary goal is to be an underground and rescue hero. You're already pretty popular though. Uraraka pointed out. Why not go for daylight? Bakugo had let him take a break with Uraraka as the class split up into different stores. I prefer night patrols. I'm able to help a lot of people in the night. Some of his daily memory was somewhat improving, though not by much. Raka. Thank you. What for? She asked. For always helping me. I don't remember a lot, but I know how I feel about you. You are always there for me. He gives her a smile that has grown rarer with the increasing drawbacks. Thank you. Well, I mean, I'm going to get this flashy thingy light. Bye. She hurried off, her face a blooming pink. He wondered if she had a fever. Hey, you're that guy from the sports festival, right? Someone looped an arm over him. I saw you on TV. Man, you're amazing getting first place. Thank you. Fingers pressed against his neck, all 5. It really doesn't work on you, huh? Nothing does. Without blinking, he threw Shigaraki over his shoulder and restrained his arms. What are you doing? Someone asked. Someone call security. This person is a villain. He says calmly. A villain? Really? Get off me. He's lying. Shigaraki struggled, but the boy wouldn't budge. Lying? Wait, isn't that kid from the sports festival? Someone pointed out. The creepy ghost kid that got first place? Another whispered. Please stay clear, this person is dangerous. The boy says in his calm voice, projecting it as loudly as he could. Someone call the police. On it. Black mist appears above him, yellow eyes glared down at Midoriya. I'm afraid that cannot be allowed. Kurogyri moved quickly, warping away the villain before anyone else could act. Blank eyes stared at the warp villain with an unreadable expression. Until next time, Midoriya Izuku. For the first time, Midoriya glares. 57. The bus ride is chaotic as can be. More than half the class had decided to bring their own cameras. Some were digital, some were Polaroids. Aizawa would have had them all confiscated if they didn't keep saying it was for Midoriya to remember them. He almost thinks they're using him as an excuse until they did a group photo before getting on the bus and gave the kid a copy. The boy smiled and Aizawa relented at that point. Hey, when we get to the camp, why don't we do some scrapbooking? Ashido suggested. We could have a little nature hike and all that, it'll be great. Maybe we could identify the local flora and press them. Yaoyorozu added. I'm sure there are plenty of interesting ones. Koda nodded enthusiastically at the idea. I could help identify the animals too. He suggested softly. That's great. Uraraka agreed. I'm gonna look for a cool rock. Kirishima said. A rock? Ciro laughed. Yeah. For memories. You could find all kinds of colors and shapes. My cousin found a heart-shaped one once. That's so cute. Ashido gushed. I don't mind looking for cool rocks, Ribbit. Aizawa sighed. Yeah, there won't be any time to look for cool rocks. They stopped the bus in the middle of the road as planned, introduced the pros helping out the program. The wild pussycats then caused a landslide for the kids to start off their first activity. All according to plan. But they soon realized to account for one more crucial thing. The bus arrived at the campsite and just as Aizawa stepped out, the first student had arrived. They forgot about Midoriya's acceleration. Sensei, can I carry my classmates here? Aizawa only sighed heavier. There goes his initial plans. Yeah, go ahead. 58. Mandalay was surprised. The kids arrived much earlier than expected thanks to that kid with the neutralizing quirk. His power had just evolved with a seemingly boundless acceleration ability and his consistent strength training gave him the capability to carry even their biggest classmates. Most of them didn't mind it but a couple more competitive students did reprimand him. Not for long though, he mentioned not wanting them to miss lunch and they all folded. They hadn't planned for the kids to make it in time. Mostly to show them up a little as pros but Aizawa's golden boy has gotten them all beat by a mile. The kids figured out how to make lunch with less chaos than expected. The angry one took the reins and handled most of it. Then, as they were eating, one of them spoke up. Do we have any other activities after this? The cute girl with the round face asked. Just put your stuff away. Why do you ask? Aizawa eyes them carefully. We were just thinking if we could do a little collecting, Ribbit. The frog girl said. Midoriya will forget a lot so we want to help him remember our summer camp. Right, this kid has some serious continuous drawbacks. At least his acceleration doesn't seem affected by it. It doesn't sound like a bad idea. No problem. Ragdoll said. I'm sure I can keep an eye on everyone. Well, except Midoriya maybe. I figured that'd be the case. He hands Midoriya a pager. If anything feels wrong, make sure to contact me immediately. Understood? The boy accepts the pager. Yes. He returns his attention to the whole class. You all have 2 hours at most to check out the campsite. Don't wander too far, I'll make Midoriya bring you back and have you sit out the rest of the day. Am I clear? Yes, sir. The class replied. 59. Koda watched from afar at the gaggle of wannabe heroes running around and exploring the campsite. They were trying to drag this one guy with the white eyes around to check out all the things they found. Flowers, rocks, and one of them even brought him to a river they found. When it was close to half an hour, they all came back with various things they grabbed from the forest. Some even brought cameras to show him the sights. Almost immediately, they all started scrapbooking in what should have been the cram room. They had a big empty book and were doing all these little crafty things as detailed and quick as they could. It's so stupid. They're at a training camp to be heroes and here they are, acting like a bunch of kids. Then again, maybe that was better than watching them train all day. By nightfall, they went to the hot springs to relax their muscles from a long day of exploration. The blank-eyed guy, he has a ton of scars. Whatever. Soon, they were getting dinner started and talked about their first day of fun. One dude found a rock that looked like a bunny and another decided to paint it green like the blank-eyed one. It's stupidly sweet. He hates it. Hello. Just when he thought he'd have a moment alone, Blank Eyes is here again. What do you want? He sneered. Mandalay asked me to bring you food. He says, showing him the tray. Koda glares at the tray, then at Midoriya. I heard the adults talking. They said you could forget about this place in a few days because of your quirk. Yes. That will probably happen. He nodded as he handed off the tray. Then what are you doing here? Koda yelled at him. Shouldn't you be in some kind of hospital or something? When you lose all your memories, you'll be a liability at most. So why bother with all this hero stuff? Midoriya sighed, looking up at the stars. I used to dream about being a hero. Koda rolled his eyes. And I abandoned that dream when my condition became clear to me. He turned back sharply at the weird guy. Then how come you're here? I don't remember. He shook his head. But Aizawa-sensei tells me that I already am a hero and I might as well be officiated. No matter what, it seems this body is determined to move towards saving lives. But you could die. Koda says. You'll die a horrible death as a hero. I could. He nodded. But when my memories go, I won't be a liability. I'll be as I always have been. Nothing. The enunciation of that word made the small boy shiver. Maybe things won't change, maybe I'll be doomed to a horrific fate. I've long walked towards that ending, my classmates haven't been told, but the moment I got this work, I've been heading towards oblivion. Pieces of me are forgotten every day and eventually, there'll be nothing left. He says with a wistful look in his eyes. And yet. The final words repeated in Koda's mind. He tries to ignore it when he goes to sleep, but it accompanied him through the harsh revising of his memories. It's all futile in the end. And yet. 61. Class 1 Beyond as their homeroom teacher ushered them to the training area. They whined about being up so early, but the moment they arrived, they were greeted by the sight of Class 1A and their grueling training. They started out earlier, and from the various screaming, crying, hurling, and groaning, the other class could tell it's going to be a long day for all of them. Though a curious sight caught their eye. Snipe-sensei? Kendo pointed out the man not standing far from them, aiming his gun into the open, at the other students. Oh good. He says, clicking his gun and taking aim. More targets. Bang. Monoma is on the ground now. Someone was pressing him down and breathing heavily. Midoriya Izuku glares subtly at his teacher. There's a blue splash of paint over his shoulder. You're hit again, you jackdaw. He says. Because of his passive-active quirk, we couldn't think what to improve for it without possibly causing more drawbacks. Following his internship, Midoriya had developed a hyper-acceleration ability that can be activated at will. So, we're working on catching up his reaction speed to the top speed of his acceleration. Vlad King explained to his classroom. Correct, Omundo, blood bag. Snipe teased, then fired his gun multiple times at several Class B students, only for them to be moved around and the shots missing. At any point Midoriya shoves ya, it's probably 'cause I'm shooting at ya. Got it? The class nodded nervously as he loaded his gun again. When he turns it towards Class A, they sigh in momentary relief. 62. By sunset, both classes must work together to cook their own dinner. They've had a very long day of training, so much so that even Midoriya looked winded despite his incredible endurance. He was actually quite close to collapsing, but luckily Snipe-sensei has a sharp eye and made sure all he had to do for the rest of the day was rest. Due to his lack of cooking ability and continuous instigations, Monomoa had to be benched and sat next to Midoriya as the others cooked. You must be another level of incompetent if they asked me to watch you. He jeered. Class A's golden boy can't even take care of himself. Midoriya doesn't say anything in retaliation or react too much at all, only looking down at the dirt. What? Got nothing to say? Sorry, I don't remember you personally. Are we friends? Friends? With the likes of you? He scoffed loudly but then got curious. Why do you think so? Because I think I remember admiring your quirk. My quirk? It's extremely fascinating. You're able to copy any quirk, even if it is for a limited time. It's quite impressive. Your body is able to constantly evolve and shift to adapt to the various quirks without any visible issues. Monomoa rolled his eyes as the weirdo rambled on until he noticed the stares he was getting from Class A. Hell, why were their homeroom teachers staring too? After dinner, Midoriya goes to trail after that rude little brag while he himself is suddenly pulled aside by Class A. He braced for the insults, the bashing, but none of what he expected happened. I haven't seen him talk so much for so long. Thank you, Uraraka exclaimed first. He's finally back to rambling again. Another student said, Minomawa, as representative of Class A, I would like to thank you for talking Midoriya. Since his drawbacks progressed, he hadn't said anything more than short sentences. Iida Tenya explained. He just rambled on about my quirk. It's nothing special. Minomawa finds himself muttering. The nerd loves quirks. The brash explosive boy said. It's been that way since we were kids. He used to never shut up about them, till he just slowly clammed up and… Blasty boy scowled at the ground, gritting his teeth and growling. Whatever. Just take the thanks from everyone or they'll never leave you alone. 63. By the third day, Midoriya is capable of dodging bullets and helping others avoid them. Aizawa-sensei has allowed him to wear his arm and ankle braces this time to learn how to deflect and intercept bullets more precisely without knocking anyone down. Sensei. Midoriya appears behind Snipe, attempting to unarm him but is nearly caught before he dodges out of the way. I have a question. Go for it, little Corvid. He reloads the next rounds. Will any other teacher be here? No. He answered. I'm even here just last minute, cause of you. Sorry. Nah, I mean, I'm glad to be here to help you with your new powers. He says. Gotta say, you're a real natural at it. Midoriya shrugged. It's just running. Kid, it's rapid acceleration. I don't even think I can see you move much, even if I could use my quirk on you. Compared to you back then, I'd say you've changed. Midoriya looks up. Changed? He dodges the bullet with a tilt of his head. You look alive. But I am alive. Snipe chuckled fondly under his breath. Yeah. Back then, you'd say you're still just nothing. Today, you said that you're alive. I really changed? Yes. The next shot hit him square in the chest. Now, let's pick this back up. Existential crisis or no, ain't no slacking in front of me. Yes, sir. 64. It was supposed to be fun. Because of some uneven numbers, Midoriya was free to help any team who asked. The first team had asked him to put on a headband so the hair stays out of his eyes and had him standing as still as a statue in the dark. He essentially became an environmental prop, then the other teams had to plan around him. Momo even gave him a white outfit to wear so it looked more eerie. Some people jumped or screamed when they saw him. A message from Eraserhead alerted his pager, taking him away from the competition to do a perimeter sweep. Villains had appeared at their training camp. Could you maybe put the gun away now? The man had several terrible burn scars, but the ones on his face seemed to show improvement. He's bleeding from the shoulder as the goop that was his clone puddled around him. I told you what I know. Nah, pal. Snipe said. Ain't gonna be that easy. Not until we can confirm the truth. Thunder rolled over the dark skies, lightning flashes overhead, and Midoriya is back from his round with Koda clinging to him for dear life. Confirmed 9 intruders. Koda was nearly confronted by one of the most dangerous ones. An enhancement-type quirk. He says before placing the boy in Snipe's care. He stared at Dabi briefly. Are you finished? You remembered that deal, huh? Dabi smirked, self-satisfactory. You remember a dude with a personality disorder? If you don't, he's one of the guys you saved a while back. He's here too for you. I see. Thank you. With that, he was gone again. Dabi whistles at the sheer speed of this kid. That's new. You really joined this whole attack to back him up? Snipe questioned as Koda stands behind him with frightened yet curious eyes. Dabi doesn't humor him with an answer. 65. Wow, you two are so cute. The strange girl in front of them said. And oh my gosh. You're green. Just like Jin-kun. Jin? Izuku? Izuku. The girl muttered, losing her smile. How is he lately? Is he getting worse? That he's actually doing better. Tsuyu answered honestly. The girl's smile brightened. That's great. I'm so glad. He saved me, you know. We heard about this job and wanted to help him. Uraraka doesn't let her guard down. The girl nodded fervently. Me, Dabi, and twice. You can call me Toga, by the way. You're Jin's friends, right? We should get you back to camp. There's some dangerous people out here who'll seriously make you bleed. Blood's pretty but too much would kill ya and then, I won't see you anymore. Her logic is a bit skewed and what she says could be a trick. You don't trust me, right? The girl says. How about we take down one of the bad guys together? There's one not far from here. Wait, that just makes me sound worse. How many bad guys are here? About 9 of us made it here. Other than me and my friends, the others are trouble. The information checks out with what Mandalay said. 9 intruders, Ragdoll was down and Snipe-sensei has one that already surrendered voluntarily. Uraraka takes a deep breath and holds her hand out. Then let's go together. 66. Luckily, Gintonic found Ragdoll before they could try kidnapping her for whatever nefarious purposes. He quickly set her down inside the classroom with Vlad King and immediately went out the window to find the others to bring back. As instructed, he'd gone to check on students in the foggy area, finding some of them had gone unconscious from the poisonous gas. Who's there? Tetsu. He remembered the short form of the name as the metal head lurked out of the bushes with the villain responsible knocked out. Tetsu. He sighed with relief. Oh, it's you, Midoriya. The others relaxed. I have to do more perimeter sweeps to make sure everyone gets back to camp. Please, can you carry the unconscious ones? He asked them. The students complied with his request, each taking an unconscious person with his instructions on proper rescue carries. Hey, you know the villains are looking for you and your explodey friend, right? His head shot up. Kaken? Him and the bird guy. I see. He nodded seriously. Thank you for telling me. With that, he's gone again in another flash of lightning. They don't know if it's because of the timing or the fact his powers do leave an electrical feel, but they're certain that the storm rumbling above them is following Midoriya. And the storm is growing. 67. Toga-chan. Uraraka let out an unexpected scream as the giant fist came down on the blonde girl, turning her into mush. Sue grabbed her hand and pulled her away. It's just a clone. We have to go. As the frog girl said, dozens of Toga clones take over where one of them was crushed and continued their joint assault against the muscular villain. But they need our help. Uraraka said. We don't. The guy they met in the forest wearing a bodysuit says. Yes, we do. Ochako-chan, just go. Toga, the real Toga, pushed them. This one is a big meanie. He won't hesitate, so you have to go. Later, when we all make it out, we can hang out. Okay? Iida okay. Tsuyu turned around. Toga-chan, call me Tsu next time. The other girl blushed, brandishing her knife in renewed vigor. Okay. With that, they ran, turning back every so often to see the villain now rampage against their new friends. A flash of lightning streaked across the skies and suddenly Izuku is there, landing a kick at the villain before immediately moving to grapple around Muscular's neck. The girls stopped for a moment to observe from afar. Midoriya has been an incredible classmate and friend to them. He surprises them over and over again not because of his quirk or condition, but by simply acting as himself. No matter the memory loss or loss of senses, he continues to move forward to save anyone he could reach because his body wills it so. They held their breaths as Midoriya puts the villain in a chokehold, becoming a living capture weapon with his quirk to suppress the other's abilities. Toga and Twice moved in quickly to help him take down the villain one way or another. The villain had his arms around Izuku, trying to pry him off his neck with the death grip of his giant hands, but the boy was relentless and refused to budge. What are you two doing? They looked back where Aizawa-sensei was heading towards them. Sensei. Midoriya, he dash. Their teacher rushed past them before Uraraka could finish. Get back to the camp. I'll handle this. He told them as he sprinted forward with his capture weapon. The girls nodded, going back to camp with faith that their teacher will handle things. Him and Midoriya together are practically unstoppable. They'll be okay. 68. Of course his problem child would be the one to have not 1, not 2, but 3 aspiring villains change their allegiance just by existing the way he does. He didn't like the idea of being cloned at first, but he had to admit the extra hand was helpful. Muscular was a difficult villain due to the versatility of his quirk and the sheer size of his original muscle mass. It took longer than he liked, but the man was finally down and wrapped in the capture scarf. His clone had lost its form when it protected Midoriya from being flung too far. That blood girl is checking on him now since he didn't get up. How is he? He asked once he was sure Muscular wasn't going to bother them too soon. He's all bruised up. Bad. Toga said, lifting a part of the boy's shirt to show the purple swelling. Looks like broken ribs. Twice said. Maybe internal bleeding. Sheet. He scooped the kid up as gently as he could. There's still a couple more out there, but I think most of the kids are covered. Twice, can you clone me to check on the ones that haven't made it yet? Sure thing. W never. Once the clone was made, he didn't waste any more time and headed straight for the camp. His own assessment showed no internal bleeding, but the kid definitely has those broken ribs twice mentioned. His heart aches remembering that the boy won't be able to heal at the same rate as others would when not even healing quirks were effective on him. Still, he promised himself his kid was going to be okay. That they'll be alright. The kid has to graduate and show them all that he could be a hero. That he could still live his dreams, that he could believe in it. The sparks are there, but it's taking forever to burn. It's like trying to start a fire, but each spark keeps snuffing out, and the wood he gathered would scatter all over the place. He'll pick them all up again, pile it up to try again. The sparks would burn slightly but snuff out and the wood scatters. He'll do it all again, just for the hope something sticks, that something finally burns. He won't give up, no matter how useless it seemed. 69. He's at the camp with the kids when he hears the news. Izuku had just come to, and the remaining students staggered back to the camp with the help of Tiger with various expressions of shock and fear. The moment they saw him, they ran and tears sprang from their eyes. His clone had died in front of them and the villains had taken Bakugo. He couldn't believe it. Neither could Izuku as the kid tried getting up and asked where the villains went. He only stopped when they said he was taken through a warp gate. Getting him to lay back down was like setting down a corpse. He became too still, too silent, and breaths so small that it almost seemed like he wasn't breathing at all. That's a frightening ability to have and one that's starting to give him gray hairs. Luckily, with Snipe around, the students were largely unharmed and they had a few villains to take into custody. Toga exchanged a long look with him, staring at Izuku for a while even with her hands cuffed. Her words still running through his head. As much as she had betrayed the League of Villains with her friends, there was also a traitor in UA. He doesn't know how to deal with it at the moment. Can't confront that boy for what he's done without adding any more shock to the already traumatized kids around him. He can only exchange a whisper with Mandalay, let her relay the message across to the fellow pros and caution them to act as usual. Ambulances arrived first, taking the injured inside, and his eyes drift to the police as they directed the children into the vehicles. All of them were headed to the general hospital, and once everyone was getting their checkup, he placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Let's talk. He says to him, capture weapon unfurling seamlessly and wrapping around him in one move. I'm sorry. Aoyama Yuga started to cry as his teacher led him further away from the oblivious group. I'm sorry. 70. He's restrained in a separate room. The detective had questioned him everything there was to know. He was terrified, but not for himself. He was afraid of what fate awaited his parents, if all for one found out yet, if they were still alive, if they even had a body to bury. Yuga. He gasped, looking up at the small window where one of his soon-to-be former classmates was already halfway through. Wearing a hospital gown and some shorts, bandages covered up his abdomen and shoulders. He takes a sharper breath, noticing a scrutinizing detail. Midoriya, your hair. It's just hair, the boy said, fully standing on the cold tiles with his bare feet. A streak of white, as empty as his eyes, had appeared over his head. Are you hurt? Why are you asking me that? Tears streamed down his face once more. Because you're my friend. Aoyama sobbed again, keening over in emotional distress and shame. Yuga. It's all my fault. He cried, choking on his tears. USJ, the training camp, and Bakugo too. Now your drawbacks. Yuga. Midoriya called him softly. I'm going to get him back. No, you can't. You're hurt. Aoyama insisted. I'll be all right. He assured him. Yuga, this is a secret. You can't tell anyone where I'm going. You. Yuga sniffled. Why me? Because you're good at keeping them. There isn't a hint of malice in his words, but it stung all the same. You can't ask this of me, Midoriya. He says. Not when everyone is going to be worried about you. And especially Aizawa-sensei if you disappear. Yuga. Izuku looks at him softly, the intensity of his stare presenting more emotion than words could possibly convey. Please. He hung his head again, taking a deep breath as he cried and nodded. Thank you. That night, Midoriya Izuku vanishes once again. 71. Aizawa Shoyuda could give less than a f about this press conference. The only thing on his mind is the fact that Izuku had disappeared last night and no one's seen him since he was wheeled off in an ambulance. He has 2 kids missing. That's too high a number for him already. It doesn't make it any better that Snipe had caught some of the other kids plotting to go look for them. Ken definitely didn't like it as much either since he caught his own class planning to conspire with them. They have 2 locations to ambush and have to do their best to ensure the others are safe. They needed to act as the distraction, to move quickly so that no one else gets hurt. As soon as they can secure Bakugo, then sooner they can go hunt down his problem child. Worse comes to worse when Majima messaged him that Izuku's hero suit was missing. He cursed internally as his mind tried to recenter his focus on the press conference. He needed to be calm to make this work. He needed to trust Nezu. Kayama is watching Eri today. He hopes the news of Izuku being missing doesn't upset her too much. 72. Bakugo doesn't really say anything when the villains tried talking to him. They put on the TV to show the live conference and he sees all 3 of his teachers lined up at the interview table like an execution block. He didn't pay attention to anything being said, just drifting to what he saw Izuku do at the camp. For training, they had to invite a whole other teacher just to sharpen his reflexes. During the attack, he had zipped around saving unconscious students and last he heard, fought off one of the baddest villains that were there. It's a shame we couldn't bring in that annoying glitch. Shigaraki grumbled in his raspy voice. He messed up the game from the start. Attacks don't activate, skills can't be used. He's a glitch. A glitch. He makes the game harder than it should be and it's so stupid. What kind of busted ability is it to neutralize everything? He's talking about Izuku. That got your attention. Shigaraki stopped scratching. You know him? The glitch. He stole first place. Bakugo hissed, side-eyeing the villain. Yeah, that shouldn't happen. It's too messed up. Too unfair. The lizard guy seems to be getting an idea about who they're talking about. Is this about Gintonic? He asked. Hey, he has Stain's approval. And? Magna scoffed. He's already joined that hero school, he's as bad as the rest of them. Nothing but spoiled medicine. Poison. That statement is a double-edged sword. The next few minutes were spent just talking. Shigaraki and Spinner got into some kind of debate about Izuku. Spinner still thinks he's worth evaluating further, maybe even bringing him into their fold. Shigaraki wants him dead. He can't be warped anywhere, he fights Quirkless and is apparently as basic as someone having a gun. Technically, Stain was fighting Quirkless, was he not? Mr. Compress pointed out. It's a shame that a child alone convinced 3 of our own to turn against us. Gintonic's been on the streets for a while. Hey, if he's like 15, then that means he's been on the scene since he was 13. Spinner added. Who cares? I don't want a glitch in my game. Quit it. Bakugo growled. What? Don't call him a glitch. There's a knock on the door. Pizza DLVI. And the door blew open. 73. Sensei had to save him again. He failed all over again and just before he could escape like Sensei asked with that brat, the glitch happened. In 1 second the brat was so close, the next he was gone. There was nothing but a flash of lightning and rumbling thunderclouds overhead. The glitch appeared again and again, bugging out his game as it took out his teammates with its totally hacked abilities. Sensei saw what was happening and threw him into the portal for his sake, always keeping him safe. Taking Kurogiri with him. 74. Gintonic moved around the battlefield non-stop, taking all the injured heroes out of the way and giving All Might a wider space to fight. He stops momentarily for each one to provide first aid and spots some heroes approaching him. Please take them far from here. I am not sure of the scale of this battle and there are civilians still there, he says, moving to get up, but a hand takes hold of his arm. He looks down at Best Jeanist, who was glaring at him despite his injuries, trying to keep this child away from the larger battle. Gintonic's empty eyes stared back, white streaks falling over his face where baby fat still clung to his cheeks. The pro hero shut his eyes and leaned back, letting go of the former vigilante with a resigned sigh through his nostrils. Don't die. He wasn't expecting an answer. I won't. And off the silver bullet went, rushing into the battlefield once again. All for One tracks his movements with a hungry glare. At first he thought that the quirk didn't seem of much value seeing how similar it was to Erasure, but then he noticed there was something more to Naught that allured him. The invulnerability, the suppressant at a hold and touch. Now, added with that exhilarating speed. It takes all the fun out of taunting All Might when this glitch, as Tamura calls him, keeps moving around so quickly and taking away the prey he could use. No matter. The little bird only made himself a far more interesting catch. The child's reaction speed is impressive to say the least. Alert and precise, using arms and ankle braces to deflect certain attacks. He grows more intrigued as the braces are rolled up in the middle of combat and put together so seamlessly. Even if he took away the glitch's quirk, the muscle memory could be useful as a Nomu. So many possibilities in such a small frame. He needed to bring the little bird closer to catch it. He needed the right bait. All Might is coming towards him with a fist drawn back. He uses that warping quirk he recently acquired and pulled that retired yellow-caped fool towards him. Predictably, that glitch couldn't help himself. Like a faulty pre-written program responding to a certain code, he reacts to save the old fool. The commendable speed is enough to push the old man to safety, and All Might slows down just enough for that child to dodge. It's unfortunate how injured the little bird still was, how much more easily it got caught by the neck the moment he was within reach. You've been the cause of a lot of trouble, little bird. All for one purred. Oh, but what a lovely power you have. Now let me. The villain frowned. He had reached in with his quirk like he'd always done, but this thing was empty. And that emptiness latches on to him. What? All for One tried to throw him away, but the child held onto his arm in a death grip. What are you? Red crackles of electricity replaced green. The boy stared at him with red eyes glaring softly with all the emotion he could muster. I'm the silver bullet meant to poison you. The cold emptiness nipped up his fingers, crawling over his skin like a swarm of pests. It was like his defenses had been rendered to dust, like he was strung up on a cross and left to bake in the unforgiving sun, like he was set upon by hundreds of corvids. They picked off pieces of him, of the quirks he'd gathered, starting with the one that let him see without eyes, then tore into his ears, ripped off his fingers before tearing out his tongue, plucked his teeth, and their feeble talons scratched over his abdomen repeatedly until it opened. Their dull beaks reached in, tore out everything. Everything. He could no longer scream. No longer hear or see, then he couldn't feel. The crows shrieked and laughed, swirling around in a murder while the jackdaw that led them there simply watched from his perch on the man's skull, not partaking in the ravenous feast. There's a fine line between voracity and nihility. Where one eats to fill, the other isn't even aware it's eating nor could it care. 75. They weren't entirely sure what happened. Only saw the crackle of electricity that bursts outwards like an explosion. It took out all the cameras filming the scene. They managed to get them working again, the news reporter stating that the blast had driven the villain back and he dropped the boy somewhere. All Might gathered all his power. The villain tried to power up, but something was wrong and everything he tried activating was turning off more quickly than he could apply them. Smash! The punch caused shockwaves to rip through the air, clearing the skies from the oncoming thunderclouds and rain. All Might stands victorious over the villain and the crowd cheers. 76. Aizawa couldn't care less that he was still in a FING suit. Katsuki was left at the hospital before anyone could even blink, and the kid was gone before he could stop him. He followed the news, ran to Camino ward when all the vehicles stopped running. He saw the energy blast before it took out the cameras, felt the soft ripples of it make his hair rise up involuntarily. He ignored any police or heroes that tried to stop him. His kid was back there. He couldn't give if All Might was still fighting. Then, it was over and he bolted into the scene before anyone could process the victory yet. He looked around frantically for his kid. Midoriya. He called out before remembering that the boy can't raise his voice much. And yet, Midoriya Izuku. He tries again, going around the rubble. Izuku, answer me. He cursed under his breath. He couldn't hear any thunder, not a hint of rain, and each silence feeds the dread inside him as he kept searching. Other heroes were arriving on the scene and he knew he couldn't look for Izuku alone. 77. A great number of civilians who were caught up in the blast range were already placed in safer locations. They were checked for mild injuries but were already given first aid by Gintonic. The last person he rescued was next to Aizawa, perched on a taller piece of rubble. The old pro joined him to search the blast zone. I owe that kid for saving my life. Might as well look for him. Gran Torino said, not once commenting how poorly dressed Aizawa was for this situation. And yet, he's bound to be around here somewhere. He's still injured from the camp. 78. Hours go by, more people have joined the search. They were warned that Midoriya couldn't shout or raise his voice past a certain volume. They were told quirks like search have no effect on him and couldn't be tracked that way. Not even Uwabami's snakes would be able to detect him. Police forces in the meantime spread around a wider perimeter in case he had used acceleration at some point to wander further from the crash site. Please, he muttered as the sun shone high in the sky. Come out, kid. He doesn't get an answer. A clean-up crew will be coming in to help the search. The kid could be dead for all he knew. And yet, Aizawa ran a hand through his hair and marched onward, not willing to give in until he was certain. 79. Someone was watching him. A storm was brewing as the sun was setting, giving the sky a dull orange shade. Somehow, the rolling thunder brings him more comfort than the pitiful looks and shoulder pats. He continues on his search, now more than ever determined as he starts calling out for his kid again. No one joined his search this time. Some were heading to the hospital, others had to go home. Aizawa didn't have anyone waiting for him but Eri, and the little girl would be cross if he didn't bring back Izuku as well. The wind was picking up, his voice would be drowned by the storm. And yet, he keeps moving around the rubble, calling out to that problem child of his so he could take him home. Are you not looking for someone? The rain poured all around them, the umbrella she provided keeping it off him where he sat over the rubble, exhausted and soaked. He stares at her attire, red and white, a shrine maiden, her purple eyes and long hair. Her voice tickles his ears like a quiet roll of thunder, just barely rumbling, a muttering. He follows her. Because he's exhausted and wasn't thinking, because he thinks he's hallucinating. He could be. He doesn't care though. She leads him through a small path just cleared by the cleanup crew, their progress halted due to the weather but Aizawa was still standing. Still walking. It's a small temple with an overgrown backyard and lawn. There's debris here and there, a fallen beam that covers up a large part of the entrance. She stops short of the gate, letting Aizawa walk through and saying nothing as he moves forward. The first thing that catches his eyes is red. Red shoes under the bare gap under the beam, still attached to the feet. He's there in moments, crawling into the small safe space just enough to see the inside. Laid on the floor at the foot of an empty shrine, is Gintonic. His clothes are torn, the hood still over his head and obscuring most of his face. His throat was raw, he could scream for help, and if he turned back now, he couldn't guarantee anything else happening without someone watching. He takes stock of the structure. Checked if the blockage was connected to any other section of the temple's foundations. Once he confirmed no risk of collapse, he put both arms under the beam and lifted. You see, despite how he usually dressed, the underground is nothing but actual solid muscle underneath. How else could he land painful hits if he didn't have the right strength for it? Once that was out of the way, he wasted no more time to check on the kid. With how still he was, Aizawa was almost afraid he'd found a corpse. Terrified over the thought, he turned the kid on his back and placed 2 fingers over his nose. He breathed out in relief, finding the shallow breaths. The kid must be freezing, his uniform was drenched by the rain and the hood probably wasn't helping. He takes it off, green curls absent of any white streaks like he'd seen on the broadcast. For one quick minute, he calms himself, grateful to have finally found his kid and ready to take him back home where he belonged. Once he deemed he'd rested enough, he picks the kid up and leaves the empty temple. 81. Hypothermia. Of all the things, it could have been worse. He's not sure if he should be grateful for it or absolutely exasperated. Probably both. On top of having a fever among other things, they've yet to ascertain the condition of his drawbacks. He's in some sort of coma and hasn't woken up. His mother had come over a few times to visit him, so did his classmates. He's yet to wake up as they had to do their rounds to convince parents to let their kids live in dorms. Izuku was already a ward of the school, so he would simply be moved to the infirmary. He gets a few more visitors. The faculty, Class B and even All Might. A constant presence by his side is his homeroom teacher and his little sister. Eri told him all sorts of lovely stories about knights and princesses, heroes and adventures. A lot of them had similar patterns of the main character being super fast and invulnerable. Aizawa himself tried talking to the kid, giving news updates about everything that's going on so far. The villains he befriended are going through a rehabilitation program and will get visitation rights if they behave well for the next week. The detailed packets the boy left behind about their medical needs worked well enough to meet them. Todoroki found out one of them is his long-thought dead brother and they've been going on paroled visits to see their mother at the hospital. It's while he's going on about what news he gathered for the day, the boy decided to surprise him by waking up without a sound. He stopped talking halfway when he felt eyes on him and looked up to see the kid's eyes were open. They weren't blanks anymore. He's momentarily captivated by the bright green irises that haven't been seen since the kid was 4. Hi, sensei. That snaps him out of it. Figured. How are you feeling? He asked. He calls for recovery girl quickly and leans in a little closer. A lot better, I think. He said. Everything's a little foggy. I don't really remember what happened. That's okay, it's a lot. He assured. Let's just wait for recovery girl to check on you. Okay, problem child? Okay. The kid nodded weakly. Can I call my mom? Of course you can. After you rest. Okay. He nodded again, leaning against the bed. Thank you, sensei. His teacher grunted, running a hand through the messy green curls. Welcome back, problem child. 82. Sasaki Mirai isn't the type to go off chances like a gacha game. However, lately he's been getting so many of them with people he thought he would lose forever. Possibilities he'd never considered before, all because of one boy. Hello, Midoriya. He greeted him as he entered the infirmary with Detective Tsukachi and All Might, the latter still covered in bandages and a sling over his arm. Hello. Bright green eyes, shining with full wonder and hope, looked back at him. The brightest smile ever known to man is directed his way, paired with the sweetest little grin from a small girl with red eyes. A deadly, heart-clenching combination. We have some questions, just some of your views on the events for the official reports. The detective said. If you're all right with that. Has my mom been informed? He asked. His voice is still as soft as usual, but there's this sensation of more life to it. They told him yes, she was well on her way. She gets really worried and I haven't seen her awake yet. Eri, we're going to see my mom. He informed the little girl. Okay. She nodded innocently, smiling wider the more she watched him. Would you like to wait for her? All Might asked. There's no rush, problem child. Eraserhead steps into the room with snacks for them both. Take your time. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei. He accepts the jelly pouch. But I think I'm fine for questioning. Better get it over with, right? Aizawa huffed, then ruffled the boy's curly green locks fondly. They start of some basic questions, how he's feeling and what happened during the incident. He confessed rather quickly in stealing his suit from the lockers and going on quite a little rescue spree during the incident. Best Genus trying to stop him was news to them at least. Then came the part where All for One had caught him in his clutches. He tried to steal Naught, but it backfired. Tsukachi repeated, baffled. Midoriya gives this a good thought. I think for him, it was like diving, but instead of finding a treasure, he fell into an underwater cliff. Why is your quirk like that? All Might asked. If I had passed down my power to you dash. Izuku shook his head. Your power would be like all the others. Rendered null. I'm starting to think Naught isn't exactly a normal quirk. It behaves more like an effective one. The continuous drawbacks, the passive-active nature, the fact that no suppressants or even erasure seem to be able to affect, and the fact that no quirk factor can be detected all points to its true nature. This isn't a quirk. 83. If it wasn't a quirk or is the effect of one, then what was it? Who did it belong to? Why, of all people, did it affect Izuku? They go back to the supposed activation requirements still confirmed that he had not since he was around 5, around the time he had been diagnosed as quirkless. From then on, it progressed slowly. They observed through collected photos the more his eyes were losing color. Up until his internship on Island where his eyes had turned completely blank. As it seems, the driving factors include how he had given up on becoming a hero quite early, and with every day, his resolve and hope is chipped away. He doesn't remember the exact events that made his eyes go completely blank, but he admits remembering that he'd completely given up by that point. Truly and absolutely. Despite that, his body still moved to save people, which kickstarted his vigilante career, and saving Eri had put him on the hero track where he had gone back and forth with the possibility of becoming a true hero. The more he hoped, the more he despaired as well. It only made the supposed drawbacks worse until the incident itself occurred. Whatever Naught did to All for One, it seems to have slowly destroyed the quirks he had collected. The more he planned AMD schemed, the more quirks were lost. It all boils down to a single word. Nothing. It's this resignation, the philosophy which he walked knowing anything he chose or did would be deemed a waste, seemed to be what truly fueled this affliction. Naught thrives on useless actions. But what Izuku did cannot be called useless anymore. They see it in his smile, the shine in his bright green eyes where he no longer despaired a hopeless fate. Sure, they know he'll still probably die young since Naught never left but paused. Still, it warmed them inside knowing that everything they've done had finally gotten through to him, that he was embracing living again. He finally believes he can be a hero. 84. Izuku. He hears someone call. He turns his head, smiling brightly. Good morning, Raka. His classmates squinted their eyes. Yaoyorozu made sunglasses for herself and Iida. Ah, it's too bright. He tilts his head, confused. That's even better. Ashita whipped out her phone and took a dozen pictures. It's their first time seeing each other again since the attack, and they've all gathered at the common room after unpacking their things. We're so glad you're okay. Bakugo had only spared him a glance before heading up to his room, letting the others fuss over Midoriya and his improved condition. They'll tell him about the room reviewing competition they had, and he would barely listen, only paying a bit more attention when they described Izuku's room. There isn't much in it, which feels horribly wrong, but only because he wasn't sure how to arrange the piles of pictures he had framed. The class spent hours going through the boxes and helping him arrange photo albums for past, present, and future memories. Trinkets of all kinds would soon line his shelves, but only the ones they managed to bring back from summer camp occupied a small section. He would never admit to leaving an old All Might figurine at the other's door. 85. For their training, Izuku was already ahead in most moves, and while he's under complicated scrutiny for using his quirk illegally, he's still legible to take the provisional license. He kept his immunity and rapid acceleration. That much is evident with how quickly he was talking down Ectoplasm's clones, so they called up Snipe again. The moment the man stepped into the gym, Midoriya is on all fours and watching him with a wariness of a feral animal. That's right, you jackdaw. Eyes on the bullets. The man laughed. Like a deranged game of catch, Snipe fires out several rounds for Midoriya to deflect. The boy smiles wide and they're each struck blind by the brightness. This was it. They've all waited for this day for so long, for him to truly smile, and this child is spamming that sunshine like it's a tactical nuke. Even All Might is temporarily struck. Training still continues as smoothly as expected, and despite having an acceleration ability that tanks any attack, Izuku develops a special move anyway using his afterimages. Octane Flash, based on the 8 afterimages he could make at once. 86. They were being watched. He knows this feeling a little too intimately to forget, and this specific sensation is only possible from one such person. It's late. All the kids were asleep and Hound Dog had just finished his round of patrols. Despite the heavily updated security, the increased training and patrols, none of them were able to detect the lone figure standing outside the dorm building of 1A. The only camera that can see her barely picked up on her presence. She's looking at him. He sets an emergency message on a timer. If he isn't back in 30 minutes, it'll be sent and the entire school will be on lockdown. He gears up, careful not to wake Eri or Izuku before stepping out to meet his Grim Reaper. Her red umbrella is a stark contrast to the gray and blue he associated UA with. He steps out, one hand idly tugging at the corners of his capture weapon. Name and purpose. He demanded instantly. The gentle rainfall pelts over them like a soothing cool shower, but it does little for his nerves. The fear and anxiety clawed through his gut, making his breath stutter as she refocused her gaze on him. You. She trails off. Something about the interaction was familiar. Might I ask, how is he? He knows who she means, but he needed to be certain. Who? Izumo. Aizawa levels her with a glare, trying to ignore the echoes of her voice narrating a tale of a dead world. We don't have an Izumo. Lightning flashes. For a brief moment her hair was a bone-white color and her eyes were blood-red. Her gaze did not break. No. She says. I suppose. You do not. She turns away, finally releasing her gaze, and it has Aizawa letting out a breath he didn't even know he was holding. My and his origin. She muttered, walking into the rain, her sandals clicking against the cement. He doesn't know how long he stood in that one spot, staring off the trail of red flowers left in her wake. The rain washing all the traces of red away before he could blink, and in another, the rain had long stopped. Hizashi was in front of him, his hands gripping his shoulders and shaking him. Shoyuda. He blinks back into wariness, reeling back as he se in the cool air through his teeth. He stumbles back, holding his head as a pulsing pain hits him at full force. Someone's behind him, a tentative touch on his back that makes him flinch instinctively. Long dark hair enters his vision, his breath hitches in alarm until he sees how messy it is and where it sticks up for aesthetic purposes. A familiar weight on his shoulder, fingerless gloves, he leans into Hizatsi's hold and leads them both to the ground. It's wet and cold, he's completely drenched and shivering. There's a blanket over him now, a large hand pressed over his forehead. He wondered when Ken got here. Before long, he's lifted up to his feet, stumbling slightly before Nemuri reaches his other side to stabilize him. 87. He dreams of a blade, red as blood. It cuts through his resolve and doubts all at once. The sensation fills him with white-hot agony. Everything is gray. This monochrome vision gives him flashes of a land that did not exist, of lies that brought upon a world's end. Red was a salvation and an end. He drops to the floor, gasping as he finally awakens. Shoyuda? He ignores the panicked yell of that familiar voice, propping himself up with his elbows and getting to his feet. Vertigo hits him and he's embarrassingly tumbling back into bed. Hey, it's okay. It's just me. Yellow and green. He blinks, drinking in the colors as his vision clears. Zashi? Yeah. Hey. The blonde helps Aizawa sit more comfortably, a glass of water pressed into his hand providing a grounding presence. We saw your alert and found you out in the rain, a couple feet away from the dorms. You were out of it, couldn't hear or see us until the rain stopped. You've got a fever now too, thanks to that. He groaned. As if this couldn't get any more inconvenient. That she was there. Who? He tries to think of a name, nearly coming up short until the lingers of her voice trailed over his ear. Raiden Buzanmori Mei. He whispered. Following the mysterious circumstances of his encounter, a file was made for the unknown figure. But the system ended up with numerous errors, so Aizawa provided a code name he knows is most fitting. Akron. He won't be able to see the kids get their provisional license, but Yamada promised to update him in case of anything. It isn't long before the blonde does exactly that. Updating him on literally everything. Of course, the problem child is the first to pass. Aizawa says as a shaky video from Mike shows how Midoriya dodged and deflected the barrage of ball thrown at them for the UA crushing, allowing his classmates to counterattack while he grabbed the first points to pass. Living up to his moniker of Silver Bullet very well. By the time they reached the second half of the test, Eri had joined him to watch in bed. He couldn't say no to her big eyes, especially while he's sick. Unlike the almost literal speed demon he was during the first half, Midoriya was basically the leading man for the second half. Directing and coordinating his classmates with his vast experience, he'd recently decided to focus more on becoming a rescue hero since Underground isn't going to work out for long. He was too recognizable at this point. Protecting other hero students during the faux villain attack and prioritizing support so his other friends could focus on combat. A different notification would show him a picture of the boy with his new license, smiling wide and bright. 89. Ms. Joke has heard a lot about Eraser's silver student. The bullet that strikes down the worst of monsters. The piece that could keep even the likes of Stain at bay. She's always wanted to meet the kid personally. Brave already had his time with him during internships, maybe she could convince him to get joint training with her class. He's a lot brighter than she remembers, so happy and smiling so much. It's a nice change. One she knows Eraser is glad for. Everyone in the underground community knows about his little silver fledgling, his condition and the deadly drawbacks he suffers with no cure. Seeing him this way was refreshing, even if he was beating her own class during the test. She had meant to talk to him a little, tease him and get to tease Eraser at the same time. She looked for the kid while her students packed up. She would think back on this decision a lot. For some reason, it started to rain. For some reason, the silver fledgling wasn't with his class. For some reason, there is a strange woman in a white and red kimono. For some reason, there is a sword in the boy's chest. The world is painfully slow, Joke seeing nothing but gray and the red in the boy's chest. She knows her mouth is open but makes no sound. She needs to activate her quirk, get that woman off of Eraser's kid. Do something. The sword is pulled out. Time slows further into a standstill as the red blade emerges from the boy's chest. From the angle and length, she should have been able to see the tip of the blade sticking out his back, but it becomes clear he isn't stabbed as there's not even a scratch on him. I will return the blade to you when I am finished with my mission, Izumo. The woman says, voice ever calm, like rumbling thunder in the stormy clouds. She slides the blade into its scabbard. The smooth motion is slow and ceremonial. It clicked shut and time resumed with a downpour. The woman is gone. Ms. Joke. She gasped, seizing forward as she pulled the kid closer. She looks around him frantically for anything amiss, for any sign of harm. Yet all she could find is how his green eyes now had gray pupils. She brought him to an infirmary afterwards. The nurses confirmed nothing amiss. A check with his classmates proved his memories are still intact save for the meeting with that odd woman. After a few aching minutes making sure everything was alright, she let him go back to UA. Her own students were worried about her on the bus ride back to their own campus. She doesn't wait for anything more when they arrive, dialing a number that's seldom called despite how often she teased him. 90. The report of Acheron's sudden appearance after the provisional license exams sparked alarm through the UA staff. Further research for Midoriya's quirk has been authorized on the account of possible temperament and foreign danger. A regularly scheduled checkup reveals no change, but they were still cautious. He's escorted by Present Mike when he goes to visit his former villain friends at their rehab centers. Babigawara Jean immediately pulled him into a hug. Midoriya gave him reassurance that he was real and he would be alright. The kid's quirk meant that he can't be cloned either, so if the poor man had any doubts on reality, all he needed was to know Midoriya is there. A constant existence undeterred, unrelenting and unaffected by anything. A grounding point that's already helping the man by miles. As for Toga, his blood calms her needs and highs with only a few drops. She's taking online classes now and her center has stocked up on blood for her to feed on the regular. Tia was mostly just to drop off those serums he was developing. The kid's skin was looking miles better. Through all this, Present Mike pondered his hero name. Gintonic wasn't simply referring to him helping strangers with hangovers. The gin in that name was for silver, The colors on the boy's costume had more unexpected meaning to it as he reflected on the boy's actions and achievements thus far. Silver to cut through evil, green to represent his self-corrosion and origin. The moniker Silver Bullet wasn't only meant in battle. He smiled to himself as he drove the kid back to the dorms. The kid's a fun puzzle to piece and he'll make sure nothing happens to Shuta's fledgling. 91. Jaku City has been annihilated. There was a flash of pure white and blood red. Despite the level of destruction that rendered the city to debris, the casualties have been minimal. They traced the source all the way to the main hospital where it was miraculously intact, save for the fact that it looked like someone had cut the entire building in half. The slash lies deep into the ground where they find horrors of the worst kind unearthed for the world to see. The main doctor of the hospital has been experimenting on human beings and creating the dreaded Nomu that plagued the heroes who worked on the case. Shigaraki Tamura and Kurogiri were both found not far from the scene. They were in states of complete shock, unmoving even when they were taken into custody. But that's not the worst of it. While visiting the city for work, Midoriya Inko was caught up in the attack. She was rushed to the nearest general hospital outside of Jaku City. 92. The kid has been a bundle of nerves since they got the call. Fidgeting in all the ways they hadn't seen before. They just got him to embrace his dream again. Seeing those bright green eyes felt like the greatest accomplishment to date, and Aizawa would sooner die than to see it get snuffed out again. Despite their initial concern over his eyes going gray since the exam, he's proven to be all right otherwise. By the time they arrived, the kid had all but dashed out of the car. He's barely restraining himself from simply zipping around the building to look for his mom. Aizawa and Yamada managed to catch up just enough to see him at the counter asking for his mom. When he was denied, he zipped. Damn it, Izuku. Aizawa goes after the crackling trail of lightning while Yamada gets to know the situation from the receptionist. Activating Erasure is useless against Naught. He follows a trail of confusion and strewn papers, going by nurses, doctors and patients alike until he reaches the very room he was looking for. Wait! A doctor stops him before he could go in. But that kid Dash. I'm aware of who he is. The doctor says. He's right on time. She's about over a minute left by our estimations. What do you mean by that? The debris from the attack had shredded through her abdomen. She was barely alive when they brought her in. We did what we could but... He trails off, placing a hand on Eraserhead's shoulder. Give him time to say his goodbyes. In the time it took for Yamada to catch up to them, Midoriya Inko had passed away holding her son's hand. 93. The questioning of Shigaraki Tamura and Kurogiri led them to the discovery of the doctor's operations. The former didn't speak, nor did he even move much during his capture and imprisonment. Kurogiri was only concerned about his apparent charge, how the young man was no longer himself and had been exposed to something. Gray. Shigaraki speaks for the first time as All Might visits him. Everything is gray. What do you mean by that, Shigaraki? He asked tentatively, trying to be kind to the child he couldn't save. My eyes. He responded quietly. Further investigations show that he has begun showing signs of self-annihilation syndrome. His emotions have been muted and his eyesight has all but grayed out despite still showing color. As Eraserhead and Present Mike visited Kurogiri upon discovering who he used to be, they discovered the presence of a familiar figure in Jaku City. Red and white robes, a blood-red sword, eyes that held no light and a powerful slash that cut through everything. The city was cleaved by none other than Acheron. 94. A new endemic has gripped the world. Starting from America and the UK, where formerly quirkless individuals have reported developing a neutralizing quirk which is then identified as Naught. The afflicted do not live for long. Some take their own lives, others simply started fading away like a withering flower. It goes after cognitive functions first, and at a point where all their memories are erased, they cease to exist. There is no warning, no signs. They're there in one moment and gone the very next. It starts spreading out to more people, quirked or otherwise, causing a wave of despair that spreads further and further. Fatality rates for the general public was at 46%. Fatality rates for first responders were at 60%. The fatality rates for heroes, 82%. Eventually, the spread of this epidemic was negated through the efforts of heroes all over the world after the videos of All Might working together with former villain Kurogiri to provide help to anyone who needed it. Only a handful would come to know how this partnership came to be. The death of one boy who once destroyed everything he touched, one who stopped eating and moving, then stopped breathing one day. The new generation of heroes were raised and graduated in these conditions, reshaping society and the public with their profound efforts. Perhaps a century-old villain died somewhere in that time due to the self-annihilation syndrome. No one cared. 95. Sensei. Eraserhead looked up at the hooded young man. It's been 14 years since he first met the kid. 13 since he officially took him in after the boy's mother died. 10 since he watched the boy and his classmates receive their diplomas and walk out of the school as pro-heroes. 6 since the kid took a job in teaching like he did. After the scare that was the mass annihilation outbreak, the world seemed to recover, and after a few years, the global population has started to improve. The streets still felt a little emptier than they should be, but life goes on. Izuku became a hero and Eri was now a musician. Lil Jackdaw's here, huh? Guess you don't need me as a buddy no more. Snipe laughed, nudging Eraserhead's shoulder. Luck favored him. His colleagues and students all survived the outbreak. No one knows the cause. Some linked it to Izuku, who was Naught's first recorded user and survivor, but they couldn't find any way to reverse engineer a cure for it. Yo, sensei. Mind Blank called over the taller building, waving at them. We've got extra coffee up here. Wanna join? Well, if they're offering. 96. He didn't think things could go wrong so quickly. They were having coffee on a rooftop, just watching the city. There had been a commotion not too far from them, some kind of villain attack. Which itself was incredibly rare nowadays. Some kind of terror attack, a shopping complex going down and dozens of people to evacuate. Gintonic took the brunt of the work with his rapid acceleration while the others cornered the bomber and took him into custody. The villain was one of those doomsday evangelists. There were scores of them back during the first outbreak, and they caused much more conflict than necessary during such a critical time. He should have known they'd always worked in groups. The gunshots that fired were aimed for Mind Blank, but they never landed. More of the building goes down and Eraserhead knew no more. 97. Is that really everything? A voice asked. He blinks through the haze of his mind, finding himself laid back against the debris. He couldn't move. It's everything, says another voice. We've collected the data for this script. This reiteration of Izumo is completing its cycle soon. We should leave. He sees two women before him. He wonders if they were terrorists. And the other half? Blade's gotten what he needed out of the Edo Star reiteration. We're done. Thanks again for the story, Eraserhead. The woman with purple hair says to him. Now listen. He stills, the fogginess settling over the corners of his vision and muffling his ears. A mind control quirk? You're going to experience a lot of heartache after this, and that's okay. Let it out. Know that while you weren't enough to save him, you did your best. When the tragedy reaches you, make a wish. Something glows outside of his vision. The other woman hands the mind controller something. Listen, this will hurt, but it won't for long. Stay absolutely still and it'll be over. You should be honored. This is the only other time we've given a stellar run. Shame, it's the same one. His heart hammered against his chest as she brings the unknown object closer to him. It pulses and lashes out energy like a whip, striking against his body and leaving burns. He doesn't cry out despite the pain, forced to be still as it's pushed against his chest. He screams, the pain blinding him momentarily as the thing seemed to resist against the placement as much as he is. He blinks and the villains are gone. His clothes are torn, marred with burns and marks. He groans as he tries to get up. Movement from the corner of a wall has him activating his quirk on instinct, but he quickly shuts it off as the burns from his dry eye flared up 10 times worse than ever. Erasure! He almost sagged seeing Mind Blank approach him. I've got you, we're getting out of here. 98. Mind Blank helps him through the wreckage, reporting in that the building had come down and they were all separated. Backup was here, Midnight and Mike were close. A panicked, quirk-activated cry diverts their attention. They followed it immediately, injuries be demed. They find Mike bent over Gintonic, his jacket had been taken off and bundled over the younger hero's gut, blood was pooling on the floor. Erasure head lurched forward, immediately reaching their side. His kid gasped seeing him in view. Breathing too quickly for their liking and losing so much blood. Hey, it's okay. You're going to be okay, problem child. He tries to soothe him, helping to press the wound. Jin doesn't even shout, mouth open in a silent scream as he gripped onto Eraser's arm. I know. He hushed him. He hears more footsteps and sees Snipe there. Snipe, help me. The man doesn't move where he's called and Eraserhead is ready to shout at him again. Mike touches his shoulder. But he shouldn't do that? Show. It's too quiet. He looks back down at his kid. He'd stopped breathing, eyes glazed over and completely limp. 99. Hey, wake up. Come on, kid. Jin, wake up. He pats over the younger man's face gently. Izuku, please, kid. Wake up, please. Logically, he knew all the signs. And yet, no, don't do this to me. And yet, he gathers his kid up into his arms and holds him there. Still a squirt even after all these years. Please. And yet, what was he going to tell Eri? He doesn't hear the world shouting at him, ignoring the waves of pain emanating from his chest and bursting outwards. Doesn't take notice to his figure disintegrating or the world going white. Just his kid in his arms and the soft apologies from his lips. 100. 001. The city lights dimmed, the entire region loses power for a full minute but he doesn't pay any heed to the noise and chaos bursting below him. Instead he's focused on the skies, where a brilliant shooting star streaked across the cosmic sea. The radiant light shone beautifully, moving forward and leaving behind trails of stardust. Where was it going? Where has it been? Why is it here now? Izuku felt the wonder and exhilaration fill him. His feet carried him closer to the roof's edge, wanderlust clouding his mind the more he fixated on the star. He feels a pull, something beckoning him to look closer and closer. Then a gaze sweeps over him. A hand pushes against his chest, making him fall back against the rooftop. He blinked up quickly in it. Daze as a new figure stands over the edge he nearly stepped over. Well, that was dangerous. Sit.